Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to Testa and Neal. Keep it real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM. I'm Shea Neal. Alongside with me. I mean, there's no us. I don't know why I said that, but alongside here is Parker Testa. I just made the intro weird, and I don't know why I did that. But we are Shea Neal and Parker Testa. This is Keep It Real. We have a big show for you today. Parker put his finger up. I don't know what that meant. Did that mean you want me to stall until I pass it to you, or are you just making finger gestures?
No. You said that you messed the intro up and I held up an L.
Oh, okay. I had the record thing up, so it was telling me how long we've been recording, and I didn't see the bottom part of your L. So my bad.
It's okay.
But we have
I tried to be funny and it didn't work, like always.
I was gonna say, what's new?
Yeah.
Big show here today. If you haven't already turned it off a minute in, because we got off to kind of a rough start today, but
I wouldn't blame you.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I've probably already tuned us out by now. We're going to be in hour number 1 talking about the Sun Belt Conference today, Parker. We got 4 conferences left to do. We're going to do Sun Belt today, Conference USA tomorrow, and then next week we're actually going to do 4 shows live. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There will be no show on Monday just because I don't want to, and you don't come to town until Tuesday. So we'll do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but next week while we're in person, we got 2 big boys to get through, the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah, I'm excited. Those are the ones that everybody's been looking forward to, all summer long. So those are going to be fun. Looking forward to them. And we have just lots of other ones to get into. So it's going to be a blast next week.
Don't sleep on the Sun Belt though today. I mean, the battle at the top is a good one. Appalachian State versus Coastal Carolina. Two teams built very differently. Coastal Carolina runs up the scoreboard every single week. One of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. App State, much more heavy on the run game, but they probably have the best defense in this conference. So it's top offense versus top defense, and I'm very, very excited to break down App State versus Coastal Carolina.
I am too. Coastal Carolina was fantastic last season, and I think they're going to be really good again. They have a great quarterback in Grayson McCall. And don't count out App State either. Both these teams are really good, and it's going to be a fight for the top.
I was going to say, let's be real. I mean, App State wasn't much worse than Coastal Carolina last year. Both of these teams were ranked, so this should be a really fun battle at the top. Not to mention there's some other teams in this conference that can make some noise, like Georgia State, Troy, Georgia Southern, Louisiana Lafayette, and Arkansas State. I mean, the Sun Belt's a much tougher conference than it was, even just 5-6 years ago. It's a really competitive league.
It is. There's lots of fun teams in this conference. You have, App State, Coastal Carolina. You have Louisiana. You have Texas State, Arkansas State. There's so many fun teams in this conference. It's one that you certainly can't count out as one of the the throwaways that no one wants to watch. There's some really fun football in this conference.
There is, no doubt about it. And Parker, in hour number 2 today, I'm really excited to get into. NFL preseason starts this weekend, and I'm really excited to get into this. This is an ESPN article from NFL Nation, and I'm very excited to break this one down. The top position battle for every single team heading into week 1 of the preseason. So we'll talk about, just to give you a couple examples. Patriots quarterback Cam Newton versus Mac Jones. For the Steelers, not as flashy, but a quarterback battle there as well between Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins to back up Ben Roethlisberger. Another one that I'm really, really excited to keep my eye on, Parker, is Carson Wentz just had surgery. If he can't play in week 1, who's the starting quarterback for the Colts? Is it Jacob Eason, or is it the rookie Sam Ehlinger, who was playing with the starters this week? So a lot of fun position battles to get into, and that'll be really fun in hour number 2 with the preseason right around the corner.
Yeah, it will be. I'm excited. There's lots of fun, storylines to follow here coming into week 1 of the preseason here coming up this weekend. So looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
It is. So hope you're ready. Strap in. Welcome to the show. We'll hang out with you for the next hour and 55 minutes. So it's been a blast this summer, but hey, we still got 6 more shows to go. So let's go out with a bang, shall we?
We shall. Let's do it.
So let's start off. I'm gonna share my screen. If you're following along on YouTube, you'll be able to follow along with us. But we're gonna talk about the Sun Belt today, Parker. And I mean, like we hinted at the beginning of the show, there's a lot of good football in this conference, but let's be real. There's two main contenders, Parker, and it's Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. These are the two heavyweights at the top.
Yeah, they are, and it kind of stinks that they're both in the East because this would be a fun conference championship game. But they're going to have both teams have some great players on this team. The Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, have the preseason first team quarterback in the conference, and Grayson McCall, and then App State has the first team running back in Cameron Peoples for the Sun Belt. So they got so much talent on both these teams. It's going to be a fun year in the East here in the SBC.
They do. It was App State also has a really strong defense, which I'm excited to get into. But these are two teams that played really different last year. App State actually had a 17-9 lead on Coastal Carolina at the half and led with 3 minutes to go, but Coastal ended up pulling that win out. App State was so dominant last year, though. They outgained every team in the Sun Belt by almost 112 yards a game, 17 returning starters. They're 32-5 at home in the last 6 years, and they get their rematch game against Coastal Carolina at home this year. So this is probably App State's best chance to get a Sun Belt championship since their last one. Coastal Carolina actually, was a little more opportunistic than dominant. They got outgained by 86 yards per game in conference last year, which was ninth best in the conference. But they went to number 9 in the country, going 11-0. They have 19 returning starters. Could be even better this year. They could be favored in 11 games this season, and they go from Hunter to hunted. This will be a really interesting matchup. And I mean, we're going to talk about both of these teams in more depth here in just a minute, but I think it's already safe to say that everyone in this conference, everyone that's a fan of this conference, has App State versus Coastal already circled.
Yeah, and we're talking about it, so it's circled for us too. This is going to be a fun game. They got to have. It's not going to be easy for them. It certainly is going to be a tough test. Certainly the Mountaineers are a strong team. They're up there at the top of the SBC almost every year, and Sean Clark has had some success here in his first 2 years with App State. He went 13-1 in year number 1, and then 9-3 last year. So he's had success early on in his career, and this App State team is always good. They're always good. This has they're really a strong team. Their quarterback, of course, is Chase Bryce, the Clemson transfer. So he's a strong player for sure. And then they have a really fun offense as well with the receiving group. This is a receiving group I love. You have Malik Williams, the senior, at 5'10", 180. And then you have Hennigan at 6'1", and then Corey Sutton at 6'3". So no really glaring big tall guys on it in this receiving corps, but it's a fun group.
Yeah, it is. This, like you mentioned, this offense led by Chase Bryce, the transfer from Duke. He's a serviceable guy. He's completed about 55% of his passes in 11 starts in his career. But this offense runs through Cameron Peoples. Cameron Peoples, the sophomore, in his true freshman season, Parker, 5 starts, 1,100 yards. That's 215 yards a game. That's unbelievable. And this guy's only going to get better. So first team All Sun Belt as a freshman. He's only getting better. I like this offensive line a lot. They have a lot of potential. Their tackle's a little younger, both sophomores, but they're big guys. Their guards, both really solid as well, but a very young offensive line with a lot of potential. But they're led by the center, John Hunter, 6'3", 295. He's an absolute mauler at the center position, Parker, and that's why they call him Bear.
Yeah, and he's a really strong player. They really don't have really big guys on this offensive line. We've seen so many guys that are like 6'7", 320, in all these conferences. But this offensive line isn't the biggest that we've seen. The biggest guy on this offensive line is the left tackle Anderson Hardy. He's 6'6", 280. And he's the tallest guy on this line. So Cameron Peoples has a strong line in front of him. And I think Peoples is going to get a majority of the load on offense this season because they do know that he's the best back in this conference. So they're going to use him to what I think is they're going to use him as their bell cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the defense really quick. They have a lot of experience in the front seven, but two guys I really like, Demetrius Taylor, the senior defensive end, 6'1", a little small for a defensive end, but this is a guy that plays, with a lot of heart. Last season in 12 starts, had 40 tackles, 6 sacks. That was first team All Sun Belt. And then right behind him lines up the junior DeMarco Jackson, 6'1", 225. He had, in 27 games in his career, he has 85 tackles. 27 games heading into last year, he had 85 tackles. But last year, in 12 starts, he had 91 tackles. So that just tells you the jump he made last season. He was another first-team All-Sun Belt guy, and he's probably the leader of this front seven. But a lot of really good talent in this front seven, Parker. Their secondary is not bad by any means, but this is a team that expects to get to the quarterback early and often.
Yeah, about it. That's their main goal here. They have some strong players on this defense, like you said. Cobb is a great player as well as DeMarco Jackson. So, they have both those guys back. This linebacking core is really strong here for Sean Clark. I love the way this defense looks. And then of course you have experience in the secondary. You have Sean Jolly, the junior at one corner, Jones, another junior on the other side. And then you have a junior and a senior at both safety positions. So this is an experienced defense. They're a really strong defense, and they're going to be a fun group.
They are. Let's take a look at their schedule. I really like their non-conference. They have a lot of tough games that are going to test them very well. East Carolina to start the season coming up here in about 3 weeks. They take on Miami on the road. That'll be a good game. And I'm sure a lot of people will think Miami will kind of run away with that one, but I think that's going to be a lot closer of a game than a lot of people think. Also, Marshall, I think that's going to be a good matchup for them. They start off conference play with 2 road games against Georgia State and Louisiana. That Louisiana game will be really good. But then I like their chances in that game against Coastal Carolina because they're coming out of a bye week. I think they're going to be fresh, and I think they're going to be battle tested. I think Coastal Carolina is very good, but I think that, like I said earlier, I think this is App State's best chance to win a Sun Belt championship since their last title.
Yeah, I think so too. And they have a schedule I think that they can do it with. They certainly have their fair share of tough games on this conference, no doubt about that. Miami's not going to be easy. Going to Miami, and then of course you have, you host Coastal Carolina, you have Arkansas State, you have East Carolina. So many, there's some tough games on this schedule, but I think most, if not all, of these games are winnable games.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Let's move on to Coastal Carolina. They went 11-1 a season ago. They're led by the best quarterback in this conference, the redshirt freshman Grayson McCall. Last season in 11 starts, 2,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, 600 rushing yards as well. Obviously, Sun Belt Player of the Year, Parker. This is a guy that's still got 4 years of eligibility, and he could end up being one of the more decorated quarterbacks in the history of the Sun Belt.
Yeah, it's possible. There are so many talented players in this conference, but Grayson McCall's, no doubt about that, he's the best quarterback in this conference. He's a firm build at 6'3", 200. A bit of a skinnier guy, but he can really sling it. He's a real talented player coming in here. In the games that were played last year, he was completed 68% of his passes. I had almost 2,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So the guy doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, and he's a strong player here for Jamie Chadwell.
Yeah, and he's got 2 really strong weapons as well. One of the best slot receivers in this conference, in Javen Hawaii, 6'2", 195. He was first team All Sun Belt a season ago with almost 1,000 yards at 998. And also, in my opinion, the best tight end in this conference, Isaiah Likely, 6'4". You ready for me to make a pun, Parker? He's likely the best tight end in this conference. There you go. Sorry, I know your head's shaking. It's okay. But Isaiah Likely is 6'4", 250, and last year in 6 starts had 537 yards and was first team all conference as well. So two really strong weapons for Grayson McCall, and then with two really strong backs as well in Reese White and Shamari Jones. It's no secret that this is probably the most electric offense in the Sun Belt.
It's possible, and they're a lot of fun. This receiving core is a great group. Another receiver, core that's not the tallest, but they can, certainly get it done. And then Isaiah Likely, at the tight end spot's a solid player as well. He's very unlikely to make any mistakes. And so he's, I did it too. You can laugh at me. Go ahead. But this is a strong offense. And then, their offensive line is, certainly has talent as well. I'm excited to see what they do here.
Yeah, me too. A guy to look at on their offensive line, Parker, might be the smallest offensive lineman we've talked about all season long. Sam Thompson, the 5'9" senior, 290 pounds, but he was third team all conference a season ago. So what he lacks in size, he makes up for on the field.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a 5'9" offensive lineman. That's pretty crazy. But from everything we see, is he can really get it done here for Coastal Carolina.
He sure can. What I really like about this defense, Parker, is what Jamie Chadwell has done to get some transfers in here. We'll see Manny Johnson at defensive end, 6'6", 265, true freshman last year at Georgia Tech. He will now play at Coastal Carolina as well. Another guy that I really like, the transfer from NC State, Jeffrey Gunter. He'll be playing off the edge as well. And then adding another piece to their secondary, the sophomore free safety Trey Douglas, who spent his first season at Vanderbilt. So 3 guys coming from Power 5 conferences, and we've seen that throughout the course of the summer. These non-Power 5s that can get Power 5 talent usually seem to succeed at a pretty high rate.
Yeah, they do. Transfers have been really, really key here for Chadwell. He's brought in most of the guys, that are transfer. They have lots of talent. This team is returning 9 starters on offense and 10 on defense, this season. So they're certainly a strong team. Went 11-1 last season, and their schedule is a fairly easy one. They have the Citadel week 1. Kansas is going to be a tough game. Week 2, you have UMass. You have a little bit.
Wait! Did you say Kansas is going to be a tough game? It's Kansas.
Kansas is strong.
I could get a group of my friends and we could beat Kansas.
Hey, they're not a bad team.
They're a very bad team. I know you're trying to be the nice guy here, Parker. They've won like 4 games in the last 6 years. They're not a good football team.
Who knows? Maybe this is their year.
You might be the biggest Kansas Jayhawk football fan I've ever seen in my life.
But certainly they're Coastal Carolina is going to give them all the business that they can. They're I think this, honestly, depending on the rest of Kansas's schedule. I know we talked about Kansas previously, but this might be one of Kansas's tougher games throughout their entire schedule. But further down here for CC, you have UMass, you have Arkansas State, you have Texas State, South Alabama to round out the year at the end. At South Alabama. So this is one of the easier schedules I think we've seen in this conference.
Yeah, I'm going to be real here. I think pending that game against App State, which I think could go either way, especially because App State hosts it this year, this is a schedule where I think Coastal Carolina could easily flirt with an undefeated season.
Yeah, it's possible. They were real close last year with it. Lost 1 game, but all these games on here are winnable for Coastal Carolina because they were the best team in this conference a season ago, and I think they have a real shot to be the best team in this conference yet again.
I agree. Let's move on to the Georgia State Panthers, led by head coach Sean Elliott in his 5th year as a head coach at Georgia State. And they're led by a guy that I really, really like in the redshirt freshman Cornelius Brown. A little small in terms of weight, only 190 pounds, but 6'5", with a good arm. He threw for 2,300 yards in 10 starts in 2019. Only played 4 games a year ago, but this is one of their better recruits from the last couple of years, and he's going to get a chance to start over the sophomore Darren Granger. He earned the trust of head coach Sean Elliott, and we'll see what he does with it. But I think this is a guy that's destined for a breakout year.
Yeah, I think so too. He's a strong player, and he's big too. 6'5", 190s. Big, tall, skinny guy who can really sling the ball here. He had 58% completion percentage last year with 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns. So he certainly can get the job done for you, and he's a solid player here for Sean Elliott. Another guy I'm looking at here, is the running back Destin Coates. He was had almost 800 yards last year with 7 touchdowns. So he can get the job done for you as well.
He sure can. A guy that I really like on this offense that I think is going to help Cornelius Brown have this breakout year that I'm really kind of anticipating is, in my opinion, one of the 2 or 3 best red zone threat receivers in this conference. The 6'4" sophomore Sam Pinckney. He was a huge, not a huge recruit coming out of high school, only a 1-star recruit, but he was second team all conference a year ago with 800 yards in just 10 starts. This is a guy that's your stereotypical. I'm 6'4". I can just throw the ball in a high spot and I'll just out jump the guy for it. So it's a good weapon for Cornelius Brown to have, especially when they get close to the end zone.
Sure is. Another guy that I'm looking at on this wide receiving core is Terrence Dixon, the junior. 5'7", 170, the small slot shifty guy. I think he's going to have a breakout year here, for Georgia State. He had 200 yards last year with no touchdowns, so I think he's due for a big year.
I'm with you. Let's move on to the defense, a guy that I really, really like. It's a debate, but I think you could say easily that he's the best pass rusher in this conference. Hardrick Willis, the junior, 6'3", 253. Last season, 6 sacks and just 8 starts. Second team All Sun Belt. And I think he's going to get to first team this year, if I'm being real with you, Parker. I mean, this is a guy that's just an absolute magnet to opposing quarterbacks. I mean, every single play where I watched Georgia State last year, as soon as the quarterback completes his 5-step drop, Hardrick Willis is in the backfield ready to hit him.
Yeah, he is. And he's, certainly one of the better pass rushers in this conference. Like you said, another guy I like on this defense is the linebacker, Blake Carroll. Led the team in tackles last year with 74 tackles, had 1 sack, 4 pass defense, and then 4.5 tackles for loss. So this is a strong linebacking core here as well. And, a bit of an experienced secondary here also. This is a strong team when it comes to secondary play. Chris Moore, the senior free safety, 12 starts, and last season, and he was certainly a strong player here.
Yeah, and I like what Sean Elliott did here. He knew he had a little bit of an experience in his secondary. Quavian White was second team all conference a season ago with 3 interceptions and 49 tackles. But he was just a sophomore, and he's going to come back for his junior year. Jalen Jones, another junior, and then they're starting a redshirt freshman at strong safety in Antavius Lane. So he goes out and gets Chris Moore, the 4-year starter at Virginia, to be their free safety. And we've talked about it multiple times this summer. The free safety is really, the quarterback of the secondary, and having a 4-year starter like Moore back there to help some of these younger guys, I think is going to be a really nice piece for Georgia State.
It is, and I read that wrong. He didn't have 12 starts last year. He had 12 career starts at Virginia. So my mistake. But he had 7 starts last season with 34 tackles. So he's one of the cornerstones of this Panther defense. And then of course you have 2 really strong corners here, very similar in size too. Quavian White, the junior. 5'10", 185, and then Jalen Jones on the other side as a strong player as well at 5'11", 180. So this is a strong Panther defense here, and I really like the way they're going to play. I think this is one of the better defenses that we have in this conference.
I agree. Let's look at their schedule, Parker. I mean, I don't think this is a hot take. This is the toughest schedule we've seen so far. They're going to get battle tested. Not only in conference play do they have to take on App State at home, as well as Coastal Carolina on the road, as well as Troy at home to end the season. But they got 3 really tough non-conference games. Army West Point to start the year, who is not a pushover team. That Army offense so unique, it's very hard to beat that team. And then they get to go up against 2 of the better teams in the Power 5 at Auburn at the end of September, and facing one of my favorite quarterbacks in all of college football, Sam Howell, and the North Carolina Tar Heels in week 2.
Yeah, they have some tough ones on this one. Like you said, Army, West Point, North Carolina. You have Auburn, you have Coastal Carolina. This is not an easy schedule by any means, and I think I can honestly say this is the toughest one that we've seen so far. So far here when on this show today in this conference. So I think this is going to be a tougher schedule here for Georgia State, but you have some winnable ones on here. I think Army is going to be tough. North Carolina is going to be tough as well. I think Charlotte's one of the winnable ones. So I think out of let's see, 1, 2, 3. So I have 12 or so games. I think 8 or 9 of those are winnable.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is going to be definitely the biggest competition in the Eastern Division for Coastal Carolina and App State. So we'll see how it unfolds. But let's move on to the Troy Trojans. Troy is a little bit different in the fact that they have a much more experienced quarterback. It's the transfer from Missouri, Taylor Powell, the junior. And Taylor Powell was a 3-star recruit out of high school. This was a guy that had a little bit of a little bit of clout to his name, if you will. But I know we have a lot of Dayton area listeners to the show. You'll be happy to know that the reason why Taylor Powell transferred is because he was the backup to a Dayton kid who's the starting quarterback at Missouri right now, Connor Bazelak, the Archbishop Alter kid. So congratulations to all my Alter football fans out there. Connor Bazelak doing big things in the SEC. We're going to get to the SEC next week, but Parker, I like Connor Bazelak a lot. He's still a very young kid. He had a really good year last year. I think he's going to be in competition for an all SEC spot this year.
Yeah, it's possible. He's a strong player for sure. And if I had to, compete with a guy like that, I'd transfer too. And that's exactly what Taylor Powell did. So he's a strong player. 6'2", 213. In one start at Missouri in 2000 in the 18-19 season. He had 431 yards, in that game. So he's a strong player for sure. He's a transfer, in his first year here at Troy. So this team has some strong players. One guy that I really like, big red zone guy, Reggie Todd, the senior wide receiver, 6'5", 212, is a strong player here. And he's, I love the way he plays. He had 500 yards last year with 6 touchdowns. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this offense does here this season.
I'm with you. A lot of inexperience with the weapons. We're going to see 2 freshmen get a lot of playing time this year, Tez Johnson and Jabari Barber, 2 of their younger receivers. But for the sake of Taylor Powell, Parker, I hope he plays well, because if he doesn't, their backup quarterback might have the best name out of any quarterback in all of college football. And I don't know how you're going to be able to keep a guy off the field with the name Gunnar Watson.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You have a quarterback on your roster named Gunnar. I feel like he has to be out there. So for Taylor Powell's sake, I hope he's an absolute stud, because if he's not, I think we're going to see a lot of Gunnar Watson.
And Gunnar was great last year. Has completed 70% of his passes, 2,100 yards with 16 touchdowns. So, if Taylor Powell struggles, he's got some really strong competition right behind him, keeping his seat warm.
He does. Let's talk about this defense. A guy that I really, really like on this defense, Parker, is the defensive tackle. We've talked a lot about edge rushers today, talked about a few linebackers, but let's give the big boys some love. I'm talking about Will Cholo, the 6 foot, 299-pound, former 1-star recruit, but boy, has he carved himself out a career at Troy. Last season in 11 starts, 39 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and second-team All-Sun Belt. This is a guy that just does what a defensive tackle is supposed to do. He clogs the lanes. He doesn't let the running back get past the front line. And sometimes he even gets to the quarterback as well. 4.5 sacks for a defensive tackle is really impressive.
Yeah, it is. And he's a strong player here for sure. I love how Cholo plays. And one guy that's really strong on this defense, the linebacker Charlton Maridol, I don't know, but really strong player. Had 113 tackles last season. Unbelievable numbers here, and that led the team, obviously, and it outpaced everybody by almost 50. The next closest player had 67 tackles. So, Charlton Maridol, the best linebacker, in my opinion, in this conference. Had 113 tackles last year, 1 sack, 9 tackles for loss, 3 pass defense, and 1 pick. So this guy, really strong player here for Chip Lindsey.
Yeah, and they did a nice job adding some depth behind him as well with the transfer Jordan Anthony, who played 16 games at Michigan. So I know I make a lot of Jim Harbaugh memes, and I know that I'm not a Michigan fan by any means, but if you're the Troy Trojans and you're getting a football player from the University of Michigan football team, I'd like to think that he's a pretty safe bet that he'll be an upgrade somewhere on your roster.
Yeah. It's transfers are huge, and we see that in these smaller conferences. Guys come in, they struggle at the Power 5 schools, they come into these other conferences, these smaller conferences, and play really good football for them.
They do. Let's look at the schedule for the Trojans. They start off the season against Southern. They take on Liberty. Liberty's a good team. That's going to be a tough game. And then they take on Southern Miss before conference season starts. They do take on South Carolina to start October on the road. But then their second half of the season is the tough part, Parker. 4 of their final 5 games against contenders in the Sun Belt. At Coastal Carolina, they have Louisiana Lafayette at home on homecoming night, and then App State at home, and then they end the year at that Georgia Panthers defense, or that Georgia State defense that we like a lot.
Yeah, and it's going to be, this is one of the tougher schedules, I think, in this conference. Liberty's going to be, a tough game, as well as South Carolina. You got to go to, South Carolina for that game, and then, you got to travel to Conway and take on the Chanticleers. So, like you said, those last 5 are going to be really tough here for the Troy Trojans.
That sure will. Let's move on to our 5th team on the eastern side of the bracket, and that is the Georgia Southern Eagles. They're led by Chad Lunsford in his 5th year at Georgia Southern. He went to Georgia College, by the way, when he played. He's a class of 2000. So this team is led by Justin Tomlin, who was a 2-star recruit out of high school. Last season in 2 starts, had 160 yards, has yet to throw his first career touchdown pass, but this is a guy that they very clearly like. He's a strong athlete, and he's going to get a chance right off the bat, but a guy that I think we'll see a lot of, at least in the early going, Parker, is the running back duo of J.D. King and Amari Jones. J.D. King last year was honorable mention all at Sun Belt with 625 yards. He's a senior. And they also add in the Tulane transfer, Amari Jones. So until Justin Tomlin gets his feet wet, I think we'll see a lot of those 2 running backs early on in the season.
I think so too. J.D. King is they're one of their leading rushers last year. That wasn't the quarterback Shy Words, but J.D. King had 600 almost 630 yards with 5 touchdowns last season. And then you add in the Tulane transfer, Amari Jones, who had 976 career rushing yards at Tulane. So this running back duo is going to be something to watch.
I will say, Parker, I think this is the biggest offensive line we've seen today. The right tackle, 6'2", 295, but everyone else on this offensive line, minus the center, all 300 pounds or heavier, and everyone on this offensive line is 6'2" or taller. So we've seen a lot of, we saw a 5'9" guy at Coastal Carolina. We've seen a couple guys that are, 280, just kind of wondering how they're playing O-line in Division I. Well, an opportunity for Georgia Southern to have an edge is I think they have the biggest O-line out of any team we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's possible. We've seen some smaller offensive lines today, but this one is not the case here. This team has some big guys up front, and if you're going to use that running back duo like we think they will, you got to have a strong offensive line to do that.
Yeah, we do. They do. Let's move on to the defense. 2 guys that I really like on this defense is the transfer from North Carolina, the weak side linebacker Kadri Jackson. Last season, or in his 2 seasons with North Carolina in 25 games, had 17 tackles. He was more of a depth piece at North Carolina, but he's going to be a big piece for this Eagles defense. And then I think Georgia Southern has the top rising star corner in the conference. And I'm talking about Derek Canteen, the redshirt freshman. Last season in 13 starts, had 48 tackles, 10 pass breakups, and 6 interceptions, and was first team All Sun Belt as a true freshman. So this is a guy, like I said, he's a little undersized, but is he a ball hawk? For no doubt about it. So I think out of all the guys in this league, I think he's the best rising star in the secondary.
I think so too. He's a strong player for sure. And he's not a big guy by any means. The biggest guy in the secondary is the senior corner Darrell Baker at 6'1", 195. But Canteen's a strong player for sure. Like you said, comes in. Played very strong defense last year with 48 tackles, 10 pass defense, and 6 picks. So he's got to be a favorite for one of the defensive awards in this conference.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's look at the schedule, Parker. Georgia Southern starts off their year. This is not an easy schedule by any means. They take on Florida Atlantic, who is okay. They're not great, but they're not terrible. Arkansas will be a tough game as well. They start off their conference schedule with Louisiana Lafayette, Troy, and out of the bye week, they have Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, and then they end the year with BYU and App State. So we've seen a lot of schedules that are tough in the first half. We've seen a lot of schedules that are tough down the stretch. This one's got some tough games in both parts of the both the first half and the second half. So Georgia Southern went 8-5 a year ago, but with only 8 starters returning on both sides of the ball and a pretty tough schedule, I think their goal should be just to kind of make a bowl game.
Yeah, I think so too. Early on is going to be tough. You have FAU week 2, and then you go further down to teams like Louisiana, to South Alabama, Arkansas. Right after FAU in week 3, and then to round out the year, you have Coastal Carolina, Texas State, BYU, and App State as your final 4. So this is not an easy schedule here by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to our first team, in the West. The Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. And Parker, before we get into the team, where does this fall for you in the best team names in college football?
It's got to be up there in the top 5. Got to be.
Top 5? Okay. I think it's definitely top 10 for me. I'd have to sit down and think because Chanticleers is also up there. Mean Green, as well as, I'm a sucker for a team out in the Mountain West, and that's the San Diego State Aztecs. So I think there's a lot of really tough ones to pick from. But this one's definitely in the top 10, I think.
I think so too. They're fun for sure, and this team is fun. You return Levi Lewis, your starting quarterback here, who was almost a 60% passer last season with 2,300 yards and 19 touchdowns. So you're going to get him back, and then you have the sophomore back Chris Smith, who wasn't the feature back last year, but he is going to be that this year. He had 350 yards last year with 1 touchdown, so he's going to be your leading guy here in this running back room. Yeah,
he is, and he's a good player for sure. And I like this team a lot. A guy that I mean, they have a very, very experienced quarterback, Parker, and Levi Lewis. He has 17 starts in his career, but 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. Second team All Sun Belt a season ago with 19 touchdowns and 7 picks. Heading into last year, Parker, he had thrown for 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, and no interceptions. This is a guy that just doesn't turn the ball over very often, and it helps this team be competitive for championships every year because they don't make a lot of mistakes.
No, they don't, and no mistakes is something that Billy Napier really preaches. So this is a team that doesn't turn the ball over very often. And then they have some strong players, at the wide receiver position. John Stevens, the junior wide receiver, 6'5", 230. You also have Peter LeBlanc, 6'2", 190, and then you have Earl Rogers, who is the true freshman at 5'11", 190. So you have a really strong skill position offense here for the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, you do. And Stevens almost like a tight end out there at 6'5", 226, and he's a transfer from TCU, so I'm excited to see what he does in the Sun Belt as well. A guy that I'm really excited to see on this roster as well is the right guard, Osiris Torrance, because I think, Parker, this might be the biggest offensive lineman in the conference. 6'5", 332. He was second team All Sun Belt a season ago. I'd bet on him being first team All Sun Belt this year.
Yeah, I think so too. This is another one of those big offensive lines, just like we saw with, with Georgia Southern. You have, you have Lumpkin at 6'6", or I'm sorry, you have, the center Shane Below at 6'2", 260. I think he's the small. He is the smallest player on this offensive line. And then you have Torrance, like you said, 6'5", 332. Ken Marks, the left guard, at 6'4", 308. Mitchell, at 6'6", 300, and then on the left side you have Rubio at 6'4", 296. So this is one of the bigger offensive lines we've seen in this conference.
And Parker, I don't remember off the top of my head, but 6 foot 267 has to be the smallest offensive lineman we've talked about all summer.
It's possible. We've had some small offensive linemen today. We had the one guy who was 5'9", and then we have Velo, who's 6 foot 267. So some small guys in this conference.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Parker, this defense is a strong one, but it really starts with their defensive line. Two guys that I really, really like. Zion Hill, the junior, 6'1", 283. He was second team All Sun Belt a season ago with 49 tackles and 4 sacks. He's their top pass rusher, the former one-star recruit, but a guy that they really did a nice job landing, and somebody that I think Billy Napier is very excited about is the nose tackle, Taylon Humphrey. He was the number 9 ranked junior college player in the country, and he chooses Louisiana Lafayette. This is a big, big dude, Parker. 6'5", 335 pounds. He is going to eat up blocks on the defensive line this year.
He is. He's the guy that they'll double, other teams will double team, try to keep him out of the backfield, and that opens up holes for your defensive ends. So, he's a load coming up the middle, and then you have some really strong linebackers on this team as well. Guys like McCaskill, who led the team in tackles last year with 83, throwing in 2 sacks. So, this linebacking core is fun. This defense as a whole is fun. You have a really good balance of experience and some younger players coming in.
No doubt about it. And let's look at their schedule really quick. This is not a terrible one. They obviously have to go up against App State. They have to go up against Georgia Southern, but they don't have to play Coastal Carolina in the regular season. But their tough game comes in week 1 when they head to Austin and take on the Texas Longhorns. But Parker, I will say, I expect Texas to be much better this year under Steve Sarkisian, but don't count out the Raging Cajuns. I think Texas could very easily be on upset alert in week 1.
Yeah, I think so too. This is one of the the games that I think we'll see the possibility of an upset, like you said. So it's like you said, not a terrible schedule. You have Ohio at home, and then you have App State, you have Arkansas State, you have Troy, and then you have Liberty. You get Liberty coming off the bye, so it's going to be a tough game. A tough schedule. All the way through, but I think there are lots of winnable ones on this one.
I'm with you. Let's move on to the next team in the West, and that is the Arkansas State Red Wolves. They went 4-7 last year, but they bring in Butch Jones, the former Tennessee and Cincinnati head coach, and they take on. They have a lot of returning talent. 9 returning starters on defense, 8 on offense. But a reason why I think they're very excited for a step forward this year, Parker, is their very, very talented quarterback Lane Hatcher, a 6-foot sophomore. Last season, he really put himself on the map. 11 starts, 2,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He was honorable mention all-conference. And this year, I think he could very easily make an all-conference team. But he's going to be a big X factor for this team. I think it's a team that could definitely take a step in the right direction. But there's still a lot of question marks that need to be answered. And Lane Hatcher cannot be one of those question marks.
No, I don't think so. He's a strong player for sure. Like you said, really came out of his shell last year. 60% passer, 2,000 yards, 19 touchdowns. Played very, very well last year. Here at Arkansas State, and then of course you have, one of the, another guy that has to step up here for the Red Wolves, and Marcel Murray, the junior back, 5'11", 200 pounds. So. He's a strong player also. This wide receiving core, Shea, is one that I like a lot. They bring in the transfer Corey Rucker. who's a strong player. And then you have Jeff Foreman, the 6'2", wide receiver, and then Dahu Green, the senior, 6'5", 200, the big guy, a big red zone threat here for Butch Jones.
Yeah, I'm with you. And a guy, I really like this offensive line as well because they're huge. This is a big offensive line, and I think it's going to be, a chance for Louisiana or Arkansas State to gain an edge. Their center, 6'3", 285, but it only gets bigger from there. 6'3", 316 at left guard, 6'4", 315 at right guard, 6'6", 330 at right tackle, 6'5", 340 at left tackle. And here's this. They're hiding this guy on the bench, Parker, the transfer from Kentucky at left guard in Nick Lewis. He played 8 games at Kentucky, but he's 6'9" and 320. So there's a lot of size on this offensive line.
Yeah, there is. He's a big guy. Lewis is. So this offensive line has depth and they have size for sure.
Let's move on to the defense. A guy that I really like on this defense is the transfer from Alabama, Scooby Carter, the back corner, redshirt freshman. He played 3 games at Alabama and then went to junior college, but he transfers here. Now 6', 186. Maybe needs to put a little bit of weight on, but solid cover corner. And even though the secondary very, very young for the Red Wolves, it has a lot of talent.
It does. And talk about one of the better names that we've seen in all of college football and Scooby Carter. But you have some strong players here. You have some strong players here. This team is fun. You have lots of talent. You have I just lost my spot. What happened? Live radio, folks. But you have Bennett, the junior, who's a strong player here, and then and like you said, I'm really looking forward to what Carter comes in and does after being in Alabama.
No doubt about it. I mean, there's a lot of really good names on this defense, Parker. I mean, you have Scooby Carter, like we mentioned. You have T.W. Ayers. Anytime you just go by 2 letters, I mean, you're already kind of like a bona fide stud. And then another guy that I really, really like, their front corner, the sophomore. How about this name, Parker? Jarius Ramonenk.
It's a strong one for sure. Jarius Ramonenk was a strong player last year for Arkansas State. Had 29 tackles, with 2.5 tackles for loss, 3 pass defense. So this is a strong player.
And they're hiding another top tier name on their corner depth chart, and that's going to be Booker Ficklin, the junior. So, Parker, we could see, dime packages for Arkansas State this year where we see Jarius Ramonenk, Scooby Carter, and Booker Ficklin. That might be the greatest secondary name-wise in all of college football.
It's possible. It's really, this is a really fun team. They're they play fast, they play tough, and I'm excited to see what they do here. This schedule, you have some tough ones on this. You open up Central Arkansas, you have Memphis, you have to go up to, you have to go up to Washington. You have Tulsa, and then a bit further down here, you end the year with Georgia State and Texas State. So this is not an easy schedule.
No, it's not. It's one of the tougher ones we've seen today. That Washington game will be tough. That Tulsa game will be tough. And then they have to play, unfortunately for them, the 3 toughest teams in this conference: Coastal Carolina, Louisiana Lafayette, and App State. The good news is they get all 3 of them at home. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how they got all 3 of those teams at home, but it did work out that way. So not a ton of tough road games minus Washington and Tulsa, but Memphis as well will be another tough one. And I know that you have this book open, Parker, but I mean, we've been talking about how fun the names are on this team, but their uniforms are gorgeous as well. That black with that red highlights, those are beautiful uniforms.
They are. Black and red is an elite duo here for uniforms. Anywhere.
It looks a lot. I don't know. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the Houston Cougars.
It does. It looks very similar.
So let's move on to the Texas State Bobcats. And they are led by quarterback Brady McBride. He's a sophomore. He had 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions a year ago, 1,900 yards. Little undersized at just 6 foot tall, but he is the guy at Texas State. A guy that I'm really excited to see, Parker, is one of the top junior college running backs in the country, Brock Sturgis. He decides to go to Texas State, and he had 500 yards in his first season, and now he's going to be a full-time starter. So a lot more question marks on this Bobcats team than we've seen with other teams today. but no doubt there is talent on this roster.
Yeah, there is. There, like you said, lots of questions on this, but you have some talented players here for sure. You get back Brock Sturgis, who was your leading rusher last season with 500, 500 yards here and 5 touchdowns. So two very similar players in both Brock Sturgis and Calvin Hill. Very similar runners, and then you have another top tier name, the junior Rontavious Groves, 5'11", 180 wide receiver. As well you have Javen Banks and Marcel Barbie here. So strong players here on this offense for the Bobcats.
I'll tell you what, Parker. It may not be the greatest conference in the country talent-wise in terms when it comes to football, but the Sun Belt is showing tonight that they are the SEC when it comes to names.
Yeah, for sure. They got lots of fun ones, and on this team. Just looking at this defense, you have Nico Ezidor, the defensive tackle. You have Markavion Coleman, linebacker. You have DeJordan Mask, another linebacker. And then you have DC Williams, a corner. And then their punter, get this, Shay, is named Seamus O'Kelly. Strong names in this conference for sure.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And another guy that I really, really like is the middle linebacker. He played a season at UTEP, but I mean, just the fact that the Texas State broadcast team, Parker, is going to be able to say the name Markavion all season, it's just elite.
It is. There's lots of fun ones, especially on this roster for sure.
Let's look at their schedule. This is not one of the tougher ones we've seen today. They play Baylor to start the year, but they play whoever the heck Incarnate Word is. Is that like a school that just got made up for this game? Or, is that a bunch of like the marching band kids that they're putting on the field? Or I'm not sure, but Incarnate Word will be going up against the Texas State Bobcats. Other than that game against Baylor, though, and maybe a slate with Eastern Michigan in week 4, really their toughest games are going to come in conference play with Louisiana, Lafayette, and Coastal Carolina.
So looking now, Incarnate Word is located in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And never heard of this school ever.
I don't know if they've heard of this school ever.
They are the largest Catholic university in Texas.
Wow. Wait. They're bigger than SMU? Wait, no. SMU's Methodist. I'm stupid. Ignore me. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
All right, then. Well,
that seems weird. I thought there was a Catholic university in Texas that was bigger.
Huh.
Hang on. Stall for a second. I need to look this up or it's going to bug me.
This is interesting, though. I've never heard of this school ever.
Yeah, University of the Incarnate Word is officially named the largest Catholic university in Texas, beating out the University of Dallas, the University of St. Thomas, St. Mary's, St. Edward's, Our Lady of the Lake. Sounds like a school Wright State would play in basketball. Our Lady of the Lake. And the College of St. Thomas More. So I guess, okay. I thought there was a Catholic school in Texas that was bigger, but I guess not. So congratulations to Incarnate Word. They're the biggest Catholic school in the state of Texas.
Congratulations.
Everything's bigger in Texas, including the football teams.
And the Catholic universities.
Yup, absolutely.
But this schedule for Texas State is, it's one of the easier ones I think we've seen in this conference. They have, Baylor week 1, and then, they travel to, Florida International. Both those games are tough for sure. And then that last stretch of the year, those last 3 games are really tough. You have Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, and Arkansas State, 2 of those being on the road. So the opening schedule's tough. The middle of the pack gets pretty easy. But then you round out the year with some tough ones.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's going to be a chance for Texas State to take a step forward in the 3rd year under Jake Spavital. Is that how you say it? Spavital?
I think that's a safe bet.
Okay, we're gonna go with it. I didn't want to say Spavital. I don't think that's right, but um, Jake Spavital has to make a step forward, and they went 2-10 a year ago. And if they go 2-10 again here in year 3, I don't know if he's the coach in year 4. So let's see if they can take a step forward. They definitely have a schedule where I think they could pull out 5 to 7 wins.
Yeah, and this Texas State team has a history of not being, that great. In the last 5 years, 2-10, 2-10, 3-9, 3-9, 2-10. So they have some, some. They have talent here to be a solid team. We'll see if they can, come out and play well.
Absolutely. Let's get to our. We have 2 more teams to do today, Parker. And it's South Alabama will be the first one, which is perfect timing because we have about 7 minutes left in hour number 1. So look at us. For the first time ever, we're actually getting our stuff done in the time that we allotted for it. And we're not either having nothing to talk about or having to move stuff back. So round of applause, Parker. It took us 2.5 months, but we finally got our crap together. And I would be saying a different word if it didn't get me fined a lot of money.
Well, the problem is we intend to have things done in a timely manner. Does it happen? No, it doesn't.
Unfortunately,
You all know. You all know that it doesn't happen that way. And quite honestly, this happening right now is luck.
Yeah, it is. It is. We're so surprised that this is happening. It tells you how rare it happens. So let's get into South Alabama. The Jaguars went 4-7 a year ago. They'll be led by new coach Kane Womack, and that's a great name for a head coach, by the way. But they'll be led by Jake Bentley, the senior transfer from Utah. He played last year. Parker, this is a former 4-star recruit playing at South Alabama in the Sun Belt. What a weird turn of events.
Yeah,
He was
it is.
11 quarterback in the country in his class.
Yeah, and he went to Utah. And he comes in from Utah. So, career 4 starts, almost 900 yards. In his career at Utah, comes into South Alabama in his first year here as a senior, and I think he's going to play well here for Kane Womack.
There's a lot of transfers on this team, Parker, that had a lot of pedigree at their old stomping grounds. Where not only the quarterback Jake Bentley, but Parker, the running back, was a former 5-star recruit, Kareem Walker, 6'2", 220 pounds. He was the number 2 running back in the country. He went to Mississippi State. And now, a 4-star quarterback and a 5-star running back are the quarterback-running back duo at South Alabama?
Yeah, lots of transfers here on this, especially on this offense. You have Bentley, the quarterback, you have Walker, the running back, and then you have you have James Jackson, the right guard, comes in from Mississippi State. So this team is plentiful with transfers and new faces. Not only does your quarterback is a new face, your running back is a new face, and your head coach is a new face. So plenty of fresh faces here in Mobile.
Parker, they have Bentley and they have Walker, which are 2 huge names to start the movement at South Alabama. But unfortunately, this defense just isn't very good. A lot of guys with 1-star coming out of high school that really shouldn't be starting in Division I. A lot of guys that don't have a lot of experience. A lot of guys that just aren't strong enough to compete in this conference. So this offense has a chance to be really fun this year with Kareem Walker and Jake Bentley, but I just think this defense is going to make it where this team ends up in a lot of shootouts.
Yeah, I think so too. We've seen some strong defenses here today in the Sun Belt, but the South Alabama defense is not one of those.
No, it is not. Let's look at their schedule as well. This schedule is not insanely tough. But they do end the year with Coastal Carolina, App State, and Tennessee in 3 consecutive games. They also take on Troy. That second half of the schedule is just really brutal, Parker. And they also start the year with Southern Miss and Bowling Green, who aren't bad either. So, like I said, this offense could be really, really fun, and I'm excited to watch what Bentley and Walker do on the field, but I just don't think this defense is going to be good enough for this team to compete.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Of course, you have this the end of the schedule is the toughest part of this. Of course, you open up with Southern Miss. You have to travel to Bowling Green. You get Louisiana at home. You get Arkansas State at home for your homecoming game. But then you end the year 3 tough games in a row. You have to travel to App State, travel to Knoxville and take on the Volunteers, and then you host Coastal Carolina. So those last 3, really those last 4 with Troy as well are tough games.
And I don't want to kick the team while they're down, Parker, but I will say Grayson McCall in that last week of the year taking on this South Alabama defense, I wouldn't be surprised if he put up 400 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. That guy is a fantastic player, and I think he has a real shot to do some great things at Coastal Carolina. And that last game here against the South Alabama Jaguars is going to be quite possibly, target practice, I think.
Yeah, and Parker, this may be a hot take. I don't know how hot of a take this is, but Grayson McCall already won Horizon League player, or not Horizon League. Good Lord. That tells you how ready I am for Wright State sports. But he already won Sun Belt Player of the Year last year. But if we looked at Coastal Carolina's schedule, I think it's a very possible outcome that they go undefeated. If this team goes undefeated again and they find themselves in the top 10, I think Grayson McCall is a dark horse Heisman candidate.
It's possible. It's like you said, especially if he plays, as good as we think he will. And Coastal Carolina's, a better team than we think they're going to be. It's possible they go undefeated, and if they go undefeated and he plays well, who knows?
Parker, let's get to our final team of the day. It is the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. They went 0-10 a season ago. I'm sure they're hoping that they're just trying to pretend that last season didn't happen. But they are led by new head coach Terry Bowden, and they are also led on the field by the quarterback Rhett Rodriguez, who spent 4 years at Arizona. He will have 2 years of eligibility at Louisiana Monroe. But the overall theme with this team, Parker, is just they just don't stack up to a lot of other teams in this league. But they do have a really solid running back in Andrew Henry. I think he'll have a big piece in this team. This team's success. Their receivers are okay, but that's kind of the overall theme of this team, Parker. Just a lot of okay and not a lot of great.
Yeah, I think the player that stands out to me most on this offense is the left tackle Blake Lowe's, the sophomore, 6'7", 315, is one of the bigger offensive linemen we've seen here today. But their quarterback Rodriguez is a guy that comes in from Arizona. So I think he'll play well here for Terry Bowden. But this is a team that I think is going to struggle yet again this year.
I'm with you. We're going to hit our legal ID really, really quick. When we come back, we're going to finish talking about Louisiana Monroe, and we're also going to give our picks for the Sun Belt this season. So make sure you keep it locked. Keep it real. Hour number 2 coming up next. All right, welcome back to Keep It Real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM and our YouTube channel. However you're hanging out with us, we do appreciate it. We're finishing up our Sun Belt Conference preview before we get into our NFL position battle segment. But Parker, this defense has a lot of seniors on it, actually, for a team that went winless a year ago. But their secondary is not bad. Their linebackers are actually pretty good. But that defensive line just looks like it's going to get mauled all year. 2 sophomores and a freshman, and they're all undersized.
Yeah, and it really this team is very inexperienced. Across the board. I mean, the side of the ball that you really see the most experience is the defensive side of the ball. You have a senior at linebacker. A senior at all 3 linebacker positions. And then you have seniors. You have maybe 1 or 2 seniors on this offense that start maybe. The rest are freshmen and sophomores. So a very inexperienced team here for Terry Bowden.
No doubt about it. Let's get to the schedule, Parker. This schedule is a tough one, maybe the toughest one we've seen today. They start the year on the road in Lexington against the Kentucky Wildcats. They also have to take on Troy, Coastal Carolina on the road, App State on the road, Liberty at home. Texas State on the road is a winnable game, I think, but then they end the year with Arkansas State, LSU, and Louisiana Lafayette. That's a lot of really tough road games. Both in the conference, they have to take on the 3 toughest teams in this league on the road. And then they also have to take on 2 SEC teams on the road. That's 5 losses right there.
Yeah, it's tough. This team certainly has their hands full with like you said, with Kentucky, with Coastal Carolina, with Liberty, with LSU, with Arkansas State, with App State. This team is gonna struggle again this year.
Yeah, they are. Let's get to our conference predictions, Parker. The East is going to be the more fun one, so let's start with the West. I do think Louisiana Lafayette wins this conference without a doubt, or this division, I should say. I do have Arkansas State in second as well. I don't know why Phil Steele's so high on Texas State. I think there's a lot of question marks, a lot of holes on that team. I'm actually going to go with South Alabama in third, Texas State in fourth, and Louisiana Monroe in fifth. That's my West.
I'm going to agree with Phil Steele here. Louisiana is going to be 1. ASU, Arkansas State will be 2. Texas State will be number 3. South Alabama is 4. ULM 5.
All right. And then on the East, this is really, really tough because Coastal Carolina and App State are just neck and neck. I think App State's the better football team, but I think Grayson McCall is the best player in this conference, Parker. It's a lot like when we talked about the MAC, and we were talking about, Ball State versus Kent State. We were talking about Dustin Crum versus where I thought Ball State was the best team in the conference, but Dustin Crum's the best player, and I thought he could win this team a championship. It's the same thing here. I think App State's the best team, but I think Grayson McCall could easily win this team a championship, and it's really, really tough to pick.
Yeah, it's really tough.
I'm going to go with my gut and say App State 1, Coastal Carolina 2, Georgia State 3, Georgia Southern 4, Troy 5.
Okay, I'm going to go Coastal Carolina 1. I just love what Grayson McCall, is doing.
Mm-hmm.
App State will be 2. Troy will be 3 for me. I'm going to do Georgia State 4, Georgia Southern 5.
All right. And then, so your conference championship would be Louisiana Lafayette versus Coastal Carolina. Who would you have in that game?
Coastal Carolina.
All right. Mine would be App State and Louisiana Lafayette. I like the way Louisiana Lafayette plays a lot. I'm going to be watching a lot of Raging Cajun football this year, but I think this App State schedule really tests them well and prepares them well. Tough games in the first half of the year, and then they take on Coastal Carolina out of the bye week at home. I think this is a revenge season for the Mountaineers, and I think they win the Sun Belt Championship.
I like it. This is going to be a fun year for the Sun Belt.
It is. So, Parker, let's not waste any time. We got a lot of, position battles to get to for the NFL. Are there any in particular that you're excited for right off the bat?
Well,
my personal ones, I'm a sucker for quarterback battles. So the two I'm really excited to talk about is an update on the Colts situation without Wentz. Is it Eason? Is it Ellinger? And another one that I'm really excited to talk about is the Saints battle, which I'm watching right now on NFL Live. Jameis Winston versus Taysom Hill. Like, I'd like to think Jameis Winston's going to be the starter, but the Saints seem to think that Taysom Hill's could very well easily be the guy as well. So it'll be interesting to hear what's the latest on Saints camp.
Yeah, I really don't know with this one. I think they're gonna ultimately go with Jameis because I think they're gonna go experience is gonna win over here. And people forget that Jameis is a former passing. He won the passing title. Over 5,000 yards passing. So
with 30 touchdowns, he just had 30 picks.
Yeah, right. And he was. I think he's one of the early members of the 30-30 NFL club. But this one is really interesting and storyline to follow. I know we'll revisit our division picks at some point next week, but this one is going to be really interesting to see what the Saints do.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting to see. Let's get started, though. We're going to start off out in the AFC East, Parker, with the Buffalo Bills. Their biggest position battle is at corner. The battle between Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson has been praised by defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier at the beginning of camp. Wallace is the incumbent starter of the past 3 years and has staved off any attempt of anyone to take his job, and he has done so again with Jackson. But Jackson is a playmaker and could make a very strong case for himself as the preseason starts this weekend. I think as of right now, I agree with kind of what they're saying here. I think Levi Wallace would really have to play poorly to lose his job. But there's no such thing as having too much depth. And Dane Jackson looks like a really, really exciting young ball hawk for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he does. And like this says, Wallace is the incumbent starter here. So I highly doubt that he'll lose his job unless he has a major drop off in in how he plays in camp. But Dane Jackson's certainly one of the more talented players on this secondary, but I think Wallace keeps his job.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Bills' defense is just nasty though. Dane Jackson ends up being their fourth or fifth corner heading into the season. Like, yeesh, watch out. That Bills defense is one of the best in the league, and then they also have a guy by the name of Josh Allen playing quarterback. So I know we talk about the Chiefs, we talk about the Ravens. I really like the Browns. I would not be shocked at all if the Buffalo Bills are in the Super Bowl this year.
I wouldn't either. This team is insanely talented. With how good Josh Allen has been over the last 2 years, he's played very, very good football for Sean McDermott. And then you have, of course, Stephon Diggs, one of the best wide receivers in football. And then his defense is certainly dominant year in and year out. So they have some really strong core pieces here that I think could lead them into the big game.
Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins, Parker. Their position battle takes place at the center position. This wasn't really what Dolphins fans were thinking about after the team signed Matt Skura in free agency, but Michael Dieter is also getting a steady run as the Dolphins try to find the 5 best offensive linemen to start. Miami will let this battle play out over the next few weeks, but Dieter is making a name for himself, and it will be interesting to see what happens in the preseason.
Yeah, it will. You don't think about position battles with offensive linemen, but this is one. You have Skura, who's one of the more one of the veterans in this league at the center position. Then you have Michael Dieter, who's been their starter here recently. So there's some competition here, and it's going to be interesting to see who's getting the ball to Tua.
It'll be absolutely a fun battle to watch. And I mean, I know preseason football is kind of lame because it's a lot of third stringers playing for half the game. But if you're a diehard football fan like me, I mean, this is kind of the stuff that I look for, Parker. I mean, a lot of people see it as, oh, that's not the starting corners. Who gives a crap? And I think to myself, well, it's 2 corners that are fighting for the 4th spot on the roster. And, your 4th corner can end up needing to make a big play in the regular season. So it's interesting to see who looks good in the preseason. So, yes, I'm more of a diehard football fan than 98% of America. But I enjoy the preseason because it's fun to see how some of these rookies and some of these, dark horses to make the roster really kind of shine in the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. This next one is one of the more interesting ones too.
Absolutely.
And that's old Billy B up there in Foxborough. What are the Patriots doing at quarterback? I personally, so this says Bill Belichick has said Cam Newton's the starting quarterback, but he has also made it clear that it's a clean slate for everyone, and that every player still has to solidify their place on the depth chart. So nothing is a given, and it sure seems that Mac Jones has been coming on strong with the preseason opener against Washington Thursday being another key checkpoint. This one is interesting to me, Shay, because I really think Cam Newton's the starter early on, but if he struggles at all, no matter what it is, Bill is not going to have patience, and Mac Jones will be in there.
I'm with you. And I mean, this is a dangerous situation that happens every single year where I think Cam Newton is the starter, but I think we'll see a lot of Mac Jones in the preseason just to get him some reps. And this happens every single year with rookie quarterbacks, Parker. If Mac Jones looks good in the preseason, Patriots fans are going to be up the necks trying to get him to play over Cam Newton. And like you said, every single incomplete pass, every single interception, every single dropped snap, Cam Newton's going to be getting, boos, hatred on social media. So Mac Jones is going to play a lot in the preseason. And if he looks good, it could get ugly in Foxborough.
It could. And everybody knows how ruthless Patriots fans are. So they will not have patience with Cam Newton. They will not have patience with
Cam looks bad. You drafted a guy in the first round for a reason. Let him play.
Yeah. They're not going to have patience with Cam, and neither is Bill Belichick. So this is a team that I think is going to have some growing pains early on, but I think they'll figure it out, sooner rather than later.
Our final team in the AFC East is the New York Jets, right tackle. It's the incumbent George Fant versus the recently signed Morgan Moses. Moses has the edge because of his experience and consistency over the years. Fant got off to a slow start because he missed the first 8 practices with COVID, but his return probably means a rotation for the remainder of the competition. Look for a quick decision. The starting 5 needs as many reps as possible, and barring a huge upset, it will be Moses who can provide stability. I'm 100% in agreement with this. George Fant's not terrible, but George Fant's really kind of meant to be that third tackle on a roster that kind of just plays if the starters get hurt. Morgan Moses has been a starting right tackle in the NFL for almost a decade. And if he's healthy and he's good to go, he should be the starting right tackle for the Jets.
He should. Experience wins over here, I think. Even though George Fant, has, given them some consistent, some consistent play, he's not going to be, around here in the preseason because, you got COVID. So, you'll have, you'll get him back here in the next week or so. But, I think Moses, like it says, barring complete disaster, I think Moses has got to be your starter because of, his veteran qualities.
I'm with you. Let's move on to, I think, the division that challenges the NFC West the most for toughest division in football. I'm talking about the AFC North, baby. Browns, Ravens, Steelers, Bengals. It's a dogfight in the North, and I'm excited for it. Let's start it off with the Baltimore Ravens. Their competition is at left guard. This is the biggest question mark on the Ravens' rebuilt offensive line, with Bradley Bozeman moving to center. Ben Cleveland, Ben Powers, and Tyree Phillips are competing to replace him at left guard. Cleveland was a third-round pick. He's become the favorite to win the job because he has pressed even more since the fully padded practices that began. He's stepped in here, and he's embraced everything we've asked him to do, according to offensive line coach Joe D'Alessandris, and he's doing one heck of a job. I think I really liked the Ben Cleveland pick. I wanted the Bengals to take Ben Cleveland. I'm not going to lie. Really good player at Georgia in college. So I think barring any injury or just barring absolutely horrible play in the preseason, he will be the starting left guard for the Baltimore Ravens. He was a third-round pick for a reason. But everything I've heard out of training camp, he's been really, really strong, and I don't think he will play that poorly in the preseason. So I think this is his job to lose.
It is. They have some competition here with Cleveland and Powers and Phillips, but I think you got to have Cleveland be the starter. He's going to come out, and I think if you have better play from anybody, if they're all the same, I think you got to give Cleveland the shot.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's talk about let's move on to my favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Right guard. The Bengals are still searching for the starting right guard who must keep Joe Burrow upright. The competition features veteran Xavier Su'a-Filo and rookie Jackson Carman, the team's second-round draft pick who played left tackle at Clemson. Carman started training camp buried on the depth chart. Su'a-Filo has enough savvy to take advantage of his opportunities if the rookie isn't ready. Basically, out of Bengals camp, what's happened so far is Carman has had moments, but he's a tackle that is trying to play guard, and he doesn't necessarily have the footwork yet to play guard in the NFL. So he hasn't been with the starting unit yet because they obviously want Burrow to stay healthy, and Carmen's still kind of learning the positioning, the footwork of being a guard when he played tackle his entire life. So no, I don't think it's time to panic in Cincinnati and call Jackson Carman a bust. That's not what I'm saying. It's a transition period, and that's what the Bengals knew that they signed up for. They liked his instincts, and they liked his size and strength, but they drafted a left tackle and asked him to play right guard. It's going to take some time. Xavier Su'a-Filo, I think, is about one of the better depth guards you could have, though, to be there until Carman is ready. So I like Jackson Carman a lot, and I think he is the starter when the time comes, but it's looking more and more like Su'a-Filo may be the starter in week 1.
Yeah, more and more likely, like you said. I think that they'll have some competition with Carman here, and he's trying to work his way out of the hole that is the depth chart. But I think you got to have Su'a-Filo as your starter here early on.
I'm with you. Let's move on to the Cleveland Browns linebacker, and they have some good ones. The only real position competition in camp might be linebacker, where incumbents Mack Wilson, Sione Takitaki, Jacob Phillips, and Malcolm Smith are attempting to fend off Anthony Walker and the rookie Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who, Parker, if you remember when we did our draft review, I'm still very, very in shock that the Browns got Owusu-Koramoah in the second round. I mean, like rookie of the year candidate, and they got him at the end of the second round. That's unbelievable. But the Browns have a minor knee injury for Walker. He may have a starting job all but locked up, leaving a fierce series of battles to determine the rest of the Browns linebacking core. I think I could easily see them kind of easing Owusu-Koramoah into the NFL and having him be kind of, a guy that comes in sub packages. I think if I had to pick right now who I think starts for the Browns, I'm going with Mack Wilson, Jacob Phillips, and Anthony Walker. I think Walker has been the best middle linebacker on this team all camp. Mack Wilson, I think, is their best linebacker, and Jacob Phillips is a really young, talented rookie that was a third-round pick last year and played very, very well in his rookie season. So I think he's got to start as well.
Yeah, and they bring in Anthony Walker, who's been a solid player here in his career. He was with the Colts. The Colts drafted him, and he's been solid. But of course, you have so many talented linebackers. Like you said, Owusu-Koramoah fell a lot further than we all thought. Dropped out of the first round. We both thought he'd be a first round guy.
I thought he'd be a top 20 pick. Yeah.
Right, but the Browns pick him up here in the second round, and I think he's going to be a solid player. So, I think that you have Taki, you have Wilson, you have Phillips, you have Smith, but I think these guys in Walker and Koramoah are really dark horse favorites to be the starters.
I'm with you. Let's move on to the Steelers, and this is one of my favorite ones, the backup quarterback job, which a lot of people listening to the show may think, Shea, why the heck are you excited about a backup quarterback competition in Pittsburgh, of all places? You hate the Steelers, and it's a backup quarterback competition. Well, I'll tell you why. Because Mason Rudolph has been there for a while. I think I don't like Mason Rudolph, but I think there's talent there. And Mason Rudolph, knows the offense pretty well. But he's going up against Dwayne Haskins, the former first-round pick. Neither of the guys battling for this spot will see any significant playing time unless something goes horribly wrong. But the competition between Haskins and Rudolph could signal the direction of the quarterback position when Roethlisberger retires. Rudolph is the only quarterback under contract for 2022, but Haskins has a real shot to rehab his reputation in Pittsburgh and get his career back on track. The winner of the number 2 spot could very well wind up being the next quarterback in Pittsburgh. Rudolph knows the offense really well, Parker, and this is going to sound like a biased Ohio State fan in me, and I know he wasn't very good in Washington, but I think this is going to be a wake-up call for Dwayne Haskins. I was a first-round pick, and I thought I was untouchable, but I got cut. I think this is a chance for him to bounce back. I still think he has a really, really good arm. I think it's an NFL arm, no doubt about it. The question is, has he grown up? Has he become mature? Is he willing to put the work in to be an NFL quarterback? I think he has a better arm than Mason Rudolph. I'm excited to see what he does in preseason, but I think if he shows any signs of what he showed at Ohio State, the Steelers aren't going to be able to say no to this guy because I think he's got a ton of talent, and I think he makes a lot more sense as the next quarterback of the Steelers than Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I think so too. It's really interesting here. Haskins struggled a bit in Washington. We didn't see the best. We certainly didn't see the Ohio State Dwayne Haskins that we were used to seeing. So, and Rudolph ain't very good, to be honest with you.
No, he's a game manager, no doubt about it.
Yeah, so Roethlisberger it's very possible that this is his last year as the Steelers starting quarterback, and possibly his last year in football. I wouldn't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
But I think Haskins has to be the favorite as the replacement here after Roethlisberger is gone.
Dan Campbell's giving an interview on my TV, and this dude's I think he's the most must-watched guy in football right now. This guy's hilarious, and he's like 6'8". He's huge.
He is an electric factory.
He drinks like 4 cups of coffee every day. Have you heard him talk about that?
Oh man, that guy. I mean, I'll sit there and watch. I'm not a Lions fan. I mean, I have no association.
I'm
going
to watch Lions football this year. There's no doubt about it.
But this guy is so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I don't even know the guy. And after his opening presser, I'd run through a wall for the guy.
I was going to say, I could not care less about the Detroit Lions, but I'm rooting for Dan Campbell to be a good NFL coach because he's fun to watch. And, I mean, he gave an interview a couple weeks ago, and they asked why he was so energetic all the time. And he said because he comes into work every day with 2 cups of coffee with, like, double shots of espresso in it. I'm like, oh, my goodness. And like
Man.
Parker, he's huge. He's like 6'8".
Dude is
He looks
insane.
like if there's enough injuries on the Lions this year, he looks like he's like their third string defensive end.
He could be one of those player coaches, kind of like Pete Rose. If they're very thin at tight end, that guy's going to come in and catch footballs from Jared Goff.
And then Gronk spike him when he does.
Yes.
Let's move on to the AFC South, the Houston Texans running back battle. This is actually, Parker, I know the Texans are going to stink this year. I think they're going to be the worst team in football, but they do have an interesting battle at running back. They have David Johnson's contract being restructured. They add Philip Lindsay, Mark Ingram, and Rex Burkhead. Johnson was last year's starter, but he's expected to fill a different role this year with Lindsay as the starter, but head coach David Culley has praised Mark Ingram's leadership. Could Houston keep all four running backs? I have no idea if they're going to be able to keep all four of those guys on the roster. It's interesting. I don't think of Philip Lindsay as a starting running back, Parker. This might be crazy because David Johnson was a former rushing champ. I think if he doesn't get hurt, my favorite for starting running back in Houston is probably Mark Ingram.
Yeah. This is tough. I think if any guy's more likely to be cut, I think it's Burkhead.
Probably.
And if that name sounds familiar to you all, the Rex Burkhead was the guy who seemingly was in the right place, right time forever in New England.
Rex Burkhead was also drafted by the Bengals, never really played, and then they had like 6 wide receivers hurt heading into the playoffs. So Burkhead ended up being their slot receiver, even though he was the third string running back. And he ended up having like 9 catches in that game. So he had a pretty good game. But Rex Burkhead, small, one of those small moment but legendary performances where like the 2014 wildcard game, the Bengals got absolutely destroyed because the Bengals do nothing in the playoffs, obviously. But Rex Burkhead had like 9 catches for like 65 yards, and he was a third string running back. So it was kind of a cool story.
It is. So this is really interesting. Like you said, the Texans are going to, just stink. They're going to be bad.
They might win like 3 games.
If that. But I personally, my favorites to be the starter, I still think is David Johnson.
I could easily see it being David Johnson.
Yeah, but so like you said, I don't think, like you said, that Philip Lindsay is a starting back in this league anymore. Maybe for some reason, I don't know why the Texans have 4 veteran running backs that all have a chance to start in this league. Why?
Because they have nothing.
The worst team in football, you have 4 starting caliber running backs on your team, but what the heck?
Can you name one wide receiver on the Texans this year? And no, Will Fuller, they don't have anymore.
Do they still have KQT?
Hey, good job. I was going to say, he was like the one I knew, so well done.
Okay. All right. Well, I would hope
that tells you, literally, I don't know if Deshaun Watson ever plays another snap for the Texans. I don't think he does. But other than running back, this team is awful. And their running backs are average at best.
Yeah. You are spot on. And I feel like if I couldn't name a Texans wide receiver when the Colts play him twice a year, it's pretty sad. Mm-hmm. They're a bad team. I like David Culley. The guy is has so much energy. 65 years old still. It's his first head coaching job. Bringing the juice here to this Texans team, and Lord knows they need it because they're not going to be a good team.
Nah, and I mean, it's going to be kind of just a giant reset for the Texans. Like I said, I don't think Deshaun Watson plays another snap in Houston. I think they end up finding a deal for him, but it'll definitely be interesting. Let's move on to the next team in the AFC South, Parker. It's your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts, and it's an interesting quarterback battle because their normal quarterback had foot surgery. So we did hear today that he might be back for week 1, but just in case he's not, let's play hypothetical here. No, Wentz is not going to be benched for Sam Ellinger or Jacob Eason. That's not happening, but I think he's going to be good this year. I just wanted to see your reaction. I think Wentz is going to be good this year. I'm not going to lie. If he stays on the field. But the question is Jacob Eason versus Sam Ellinger. Eason's in his second year, and he seems to be the favorite. But Parker, I really like Sam Ellinger. Natural leader, strong thrower of the football, good decision maker, and he got some runs with the starters this week. I mean, Eason's definitely the favorite, but don't count out Sam Ellinger. That guy's a baller. He's a good football player.
Yeah, don't count him out at all. I've been out to Colts camp a few times, this summer, and Ellinger looks real strong. And you know who doesn't? Eason. Um, this is one of the more interesting ones. I know Wentz is he's had surgery and they're rehabbing and all that nonsense, but Eason is as of right now the starter and as he should be. But Ellinger looks very strong. He looks confident in leading the offense here. This is really interesting, and I will continue to say that I don't think Eason's ready to play in this league. I think Wentz has got to be if Wentz is not back week 1, this storyline gets so much more interesting, and this is why these preseason games are so important, because you have to have the experience, so if you just have Jacob Eason there as your starter, who, remind you, did not play in preseason last year, so he has not taken an NFL snap in the regular season nor in the preseason. So both these guys are it's almost like they're rookies here. So you have two rookies essentially fighting for the backup job to Carson Wentz. So these preseason games are huge, and I'm excited to see what they end up doing here and how both these guys perform. Because if Carson Wentz, like you said, goes down, what do we got after that? Who knows? So
this
next few weeks is really important.
This Colts roster is good enough to make a playoff run, and they need a quarterback that can win them games. And there's no doubt in my mind that Eason has the better arm. Eason's got more arm strength. Eason's probably got the brighter future. There's a reason why Jacob Eason was a second-round pick and Sam Ellinger was a sixth-round pick. Obviously, Eason was considered very, very high out of college, and Ellinger was just kind of an undersized quarterback from Texas. But two things that I think Ellinger has that Eason doesn't, that I think is really, really important in the NFL, especially for a backup, CC Gardner-Minshew, experience and quick decision-making. My opinion, backup quarterbacks don't need to have the best arm in the world. What you need to have is smart decision-making and the experience to know when guys are going to be open, to know when guys are going to make the cut. Sam Ellinger did that at Texas for 4 years. It's something that, like I said, it's what's made Gardner Minshew successful, Parker. Gardner Minshew has an average NFL arm at best, but he makes good decisions, and he makes smart decisions, and I think we could very well see that with Sam Ellinger in Indianapolis.
Here's the problem with some of the rumors I have floating. I've seen floating around, Twitter and on ESPN and all that other stuff. The Colts are not trading for Gardner Minshew.
No.
For all of you out there saying that the Colts are trading for Gardner Minshew, you do not know football. Go home. Go try something else.
If in the small chance that Eason and Ellinger both suck, their next best option is probably to bring Rivers back. But
remind you, they did sign Brett Hundley from Green Bay, so they have that other option here. I personally, I don't think Rivers is coming back. He wants to coach high school football, and I get that. But I think that, like you said, if Eason's bad, if Ellinger's bad, and Wentz isn't ready, I think Hundley can play good football for you for the time being.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a very small possibility, or it's a very small likelihood that both Ellinger and Eason suck. I mean, why would the Colts trade for Gardner Minshew? I think Gardner Minshew is a really solid quarterback. That I think I think he deserves a chance to start somewhere. He's obviously. Yeah. I hate to be the one to break it to him because he's worked so hard this offseason, and he said, I'm not getting benched. All those quotes of I'm going to fight for it till the very end. Gardner, you're not starting, pal. Trevor Lawrence is the starting quarterback.
You don't bench the number 1 overall pick.
No,
You
you do
don't, and
not.
especially if his name is Trevor Lawrence.
I admire Gardner Minshew's competitiveness and work ethic, but you're getting benched for Trevor Lawrence. I hate to be the one to tell you, but you're getting benched for Trevor Lawrence. But I do think Gardner Minshew deserves a chance to start. I'd love to see him in Houston if they trade Deshaun Watson. But the Colts have two really young, exciting quarterbacks. One that was a second-round pick and has all the potential in the world, and one that was really, really good in college, doesn't have as high of a ceiling, but I think he could be really, really good right off the bat. Why would you trade for Minshew when you have Eason and Ellinger?
You don't. You don't. The people have been saying, trade for Gardner Minshew. Stop. Just stop. That's not happening. They're not trading for Gardner freaking Minshew. They have Eason. They have Ellinger. They're going to be fine.
They are going to be.
Quit worrying about it. Wentz will be back, I think, before week 3 or 4. They'll be fine.
They will be fine. They will be fine. Wentz might even be back for week 1.
Right.
That came out today that he's trending in the right direction. So we may see Wentz in week 1. I still think it's very likely that they kind of play it safe with him and hold him out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he might only miss a game or two instead of the 6 that we were worried about a couple weeks ago. So let's move on to the Jaguars because we still got a lot of teams to get into and only about 25 minutes left in today's show. Jaguars offensive tackle, second-round pick Walker Little has been very impressive so far in camp. So much so that right tackle Jawan Taylor and left tackle Cam Robinson better watch out. Coach Urban Meyer said both players needed to be better this year than they were last season. And even though the Jaguars picked up the 5th-year option on Robinson, he's not a lock to start if Little, who played left tackle at Stanford, continues to impress.
Yeah, this is interesting because who's going to protect Trevor Lawrence here at the right tackle position? So
something I respect. Right. Go ahead.
But both these guys have talent. But Walker Little, I think, is has the capabilities to play both sides.
Mm-hmm. Something I really like about Urban Meyer is that he's so used to having 4 and 5 stars clogging his roster that he just goes with the guy that's playing the best football. And that's really all you can do as an NFL head coach. I mean, loyalty is a card that'll get you out of the NFL in a very, very quick heartbeat, I should say, where, yeah, Cam Robinson started for the Jags for 3-4 years, but if he's not playing as well as Walker Little, he's not playing as well as Walker Little. You owe it to Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 overall pick, to put the best football team on the field. And if Walker Little's the best tackle right now in Jaguars camp, start him. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And offensive line help is huge, and across the league. You have it with the Bengals, you have it with the Jaguars, and the next one, the Titans have offensive line issues, as well as the Chiefs. So there are so many offensive line questions, around the league that need to be addressed.
Now, Parker, I will say that I don't think the Jaguars obviously have the best roster in the NFL. A couple of years ago, this would have been much easier to do with Calais Campbell and guys like Yannick Ngakoue and guys like that. But here's how I think you determine this. Okay, they still have who I think is a very, very good young edge rusher in Josh Allen. Not the quarterback for the Bills. I'm talking about the edge rusher for the Jags. What I think you do, you take Walker Little, you take Cam Robinson, you take Jawan Taylor, you block them 1v1 with Josh Allen, your best edge rusher. You put Trevor Lawrence right behind him, and you say, all right, the person who holds him off the longest from touching Trevor Lawrence is the starting left tackle. Settle it with a little bit of competition. Put him up against your best defensive lineman and say, don't let Trevor get touched.
Yeah, I like it. You have to have, healthy competition, goes a long way with, with position battles like this one, with anything like that. It's like, hey, if you're a corner and you're battling for the spot, go up against, if this is the Bengals, right. Whoever holds off T. Higgins, first or the longest, whoever can keep them, in front of you for the longest time, starting corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the same can be said at like linebacker. Whoever doesn't let Joe Mixon get to the edge, congratulations, you're starting linebacker on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
But I think that these guys are professional athletes. They've been competing, at the highest level since they were 6 years old. It shouldn't be a surprise that the Jaguars just took the number one overall pick and took, the best quarterback prospect in the last 8 years. They don't want him to get hurt. So if you want to start at tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars, you better bring it every single day in practice. And it sounds like what we're hearing right now, Walker Little's bringing it more than the other guys. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm excited. I'm going to actually tune into a Jaguars game this preseason now and see if this dude's legit, because it sounds like right now he might be protecting Trevor Lawrence in week 1.
It's possible.
Let's move on to our final team in the South Park, the Tennessee Titans, right tackle. What was once a three-man race has expanded to include veteran tackle David Quessenberry. Free agent addition Kendall Lamb appears to have the inside track towards the starting spot, while Ty Sambrailo hasn't done much due to injury. Ideally, it would be rookie Dylan Radunz taking hold of the position, but he has been asked to play multiple spots and has struggled a little bit in the process. It's interesting. This is an interesting one because it's not 2 or 3 guys playing really well. It's kind of 4 guys playing meh. And it's kind of an interesting decision for Mike Vrabel. I think at the end of the day, they may just go with the veteran, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in Tennessee. The good news for them is they run the ball a lot. And by the time that a defensive lineman, gets around this right tackle, whoever it is, Derrick Henry's already probably 10 yards downfield. So.
Yeah, and that's the best part about having a guy named Derrick Henry as your starting running back, in that you don't really have to worry a whole lot about your offensive line, because the guy could be an offensive lineman because he's big enough to be an offensive lineman. He has just we talked about it. He's our best, both of our pick for the best running back in football.
Uh-huh.
And he is has that talent. So but even then, run protection is huge, but it's not more important. It's not as big as pass protection is. So right tackle's huge, and it helps that it's not the left tackle to where it's your blind side spot for your quarterback. But this is important for the Titans. I think, like you said, they're go with the veteran at the end of this. But who knows, if you have some better talent on this roster, that one of those guys may end up starting.
Let's move on to the AFC West, the Denver Broncos. This is a quarterback battle that not a lot of people have talked about this offseason. Drew Lock versus Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Vic Fangio said that he has yet to see any separation through the first week of camp. The coming week is very important, as the Broncos will have joint practices with the Vikings for 2 days before facing the Vikings in the first game of the preseason. Lock and Bridgewater have gotten an equal number of snaps, and while each has had days when they looked like the answer, neither has strung days together. For a team that had the most turnovers last year and had the worst turnover margin, those turnovers may be one of the biggest factors during the competition until Fangio names a starter. Parker, this might be one that comes down to like week 3 of the preseason before they make a decision. I think, though, that unless he plays really poorly, I think they give it to Drew Lock. I do.
Really?
I do. I still think there's a little bit of untapped potential left in Drew Lock. And I think as long as they stay neck and neck, I think they go with Lock, unless Bridgewater starts to pull away.
See, I'm on the flip side of this. I think they go with Teddy. I do. I just haven't seen enough from Drew Lock to think he's legit. I think that they'll have Bridgewater, start, but have Lock as the guy keeping the seat warm under Bridgewater, and have that pressure on him to perform well. So I think Bridgewater wins it ultimately, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lock did either.
Let's move on to the Chiefs. Offensive line is their position battle. The Chiefs have 8 legitimate roster candidates who weren't with the team last year, making for some interesting battles for spots. They will likely emerge from camp with a rookie starting at center in Creed Humphrey, right guard in Trey Smith, and possibly even right tackle in Lucas Niang. Whatever the Chiefs do, they have to get these decisions right. They have way too much invested for their line not to be solid, and obviously they hit the nail on the head with this one. I don't know enough about the Chiefs O-line to know who's starting other than Joe Thuney, but at the end of the day, the most important thing for the Kansas City Chiefs is making sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't get hurt.
right, and that's half the battle here for the Chiefs, and I think they are going to they're going to have some talent here on this offensive line. Of course, you lose um, a couple of guys here, but you have some talent here on this offensive line, and they're gonna have some, I'm sure they'll move it around a bit, a few times before they make their big set in stone decision for O line. But like you said, biggest thing here for them is keeping Mahomes upright.
Yeah, it is. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. Kicker Michael Bagley missed 12 total kicks in 2020, 9 field goals, 3 extra points. The Chargers brought in Alex Kessman from the University of Pittsburgh and Tristan Vizcaino, who was with the Niners last season. Coach Brandon Staley believes in working on the kicking game, and the competition figures to be intense as Bagley fights to save his job. Bagley needs to have a strong preseason. I still think he's the favorite, but if he misses a couple kicks in the preseason, Chargers may be going in a different direction.
Yeah, it's possible. And people don't think that having an inconsistent kicker can hurt your team. It absolutely can. And you have to address that if it's struggling. If your kicker's struggling early in the year and you're missing kicks and you start to lose games because of it, get him out of there and get a guy in there that can make kicks. You're a professional place kicker in the National Football League. You should be able to make 35-yard, 40-yard field goal, and some guys can't do that. So this is an interesting one for the Chargers. So if Badgley can shape up his stuff, I think this is a guy who he's shown talent and he can play well. But if you're missing kicks, you're going to lose your job.
You are. Let's do the Raiders, our last team in the AFC, nickel corner. New defensive coordinator Gus Bradley's base defense is essentially a nickel defense, and while Nevin Lawson has been getting the majority of first-team reps, he will serve a 2-game suspension to start the season. However, the 5th-round draft pick Nate Hobbs has been impressive so far, setting up an interesting showdown. Do the Raiders continue to run Lawson out there, or does the rookie Hobbs get more time? And that's not mentioning second-year corner Amik Robertson, who has also flashed at times in the slot. I get that it's good to get Lawson reps because he probably will start when he comes back from his suspension. But I think we see a ton of Nate Hobbs in the preseason because I think this is going to be the guy that starts while Lawson's out. And if he,
I think so.
I will say, if he impresses, Lawson might not get his job back.
No. I think this is one of the ones where we have, Lawson. He'll be suspended, obviously, but you have Hobbs, who's a solid player and has been really good in camp for him. So we're going to see a lot of them in camp, like you said, and in the preseason. But you're going to have some talent here at this corner position, one of the more important corner positions in in the league. So if Hobbs plays well, Lawson might not get his job back, like you said.
Yeah. While I introduce the NFC East, Parker, I want you to go check your Twitter really quick. Cowboys linebacker is a great position battle right now. The group looks to be as deep as it has been in years, and how defensive coordinator Dan Quinn divvies up the work will be interesting. Jalen Smith will be there, obviously, but they also have Micah Parsons, this year's first-round pick. He's had a strong camp and made plays from multiple spots. I will say Micah Parsons looked great in the Hall of Fame game. Leighton Vander Esch, their number 1 pick in 2018, has looked as good as he did when he made the Pro Bowl. Keanu Neal has made a smooth transition from safety to linebacker. There's 4 players to mix in for 2 spots most of the time, considering how much they will use a sub package. Parsons and Smith can rush from the outside, which will allow Quinn to be versatile. I think, obviously, if there's 2 linebackers on the field, I think it's Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch. But Micah Parsons and Keanu Neal will get plenty of time on the field as well. It's a good problem to have. The Cowboys haven't had depth at linebacker in a long time, and it looks like their linebacking core is going to be really good this year. By the way, what do you think of that tweet?
That is an elite tweet.
Isn't it?
That's great.
The Delta variant. Bob Castellini, what are you going to do?
So for all of you out there listening, the tweet says, "My fall plans," and it's a picture of the 2021 World Series. Then it says the Delta variant, and it's a picture of Bob Castellini.
The owner of the Reds, if you don't know who that is. So, yeah, hate to play the owner is a cheap, idiot card, but the Reds had a top 15 bullpen in the league last year, let their two best relievers walk in free agency, and if they didn't do that, they probably wouldn't have the worst bullpen in the league, and they probably would have won about 10 more games than they actually did this year, and that would mean that they're probably winning the division. So I'm just saying we're not exactly happy with Bob Castellini right now.
So your rant over.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
Cowboys are interesting because at linebacker, of course, you have Micah Parsons, who I think is going to be their best linebacker.
He was so good. Did you watch any of the Hall of Fame game?
I did.
He was really good in that game.
He was. So he is going to have, this linebacking core is going to be interesting. You have Micah Parsons, who's their number one pick, and then you have Jalen Smith as well. And Leighton Vander Esch. This has a chance to be one of the better linebacking groups in football.
Yeah, it definitely does have that potential. I think, Parker, the Cowboys run a lot of 4-2-5, so they like to have that extra DB, so they only do two linebackers. If they do two linebackers, I think it's Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, at least at the start of the year. But we'll still see plenty of Parsons and Keanu Neal. And like I said, for the first time in like 5 years, the Cowboys have good linebacker depth, and that's a really good problem to have. It's always a great problem to have too many good players that you can't fit on the field.
Right. You rather have an overabundance of great players than not enough great players. So this is a group that I think is going to be real solid.
New York Giants right tackle. Second-year tackle Matt Pert is getting every opportunity to be the starting right tackle, but veteran Nate Solder lurks. Solder has looked good after not playing last year as an opt-out. It would be foolish to discount him as the possible starter week one. Solder has seemed to sneak in more first-team reps as of late. Parker, I know that they like Matt Pert, but I don't want to bet against Nate Solder. I mean, the dude's been a really good tackle in the NFL for a while. I think he finds a way to win this job.
I think he does too. This is the guy who was great in New England over his course of his career. So I think you have to go with the veteran.
Let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, running back. Left tackle was the competition to watch entering camp, but Jordan Mailata appears to have taken a sizable lead over Andre Dillard. The attention turns to running back, where they're sorting out to do behind Miles Sanders. Rookie Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott are fighting for snaps, while Jordan Howard, Kerryon Johnson, and Blazer Jason Huntley jockey for spots on the roster. Preseason games have meaning for this position group. I'm going to watch a lot of Eagles in the preseason to see some of these running backs, but I think if they're healthy, they go with 4 running backs. And the ones that I'm thinking are obviously Sanders. I think they go with the rookie Gainwell. I think they keep Boston Scott. And it really, I think, comes down to Howard and Johnson. And if they're both healthy, I think I'd take Kerryon Johnson over Jordan Howard.
Yeah, I think so too. This team is interesting for sure. I like the way Jordan Howard plays. He was solid in Chicago. He's a solid fantasy running back for me for 2 years.
He's a touchdown machine, no doubt about it.
Right, but this is one of the more interesting ones. So they have Miles Sanders, of course, who's going to be, I think, their starter. But you have Gainwell, you have Boston Scott, and then Howard and Johnson. So I think this is a group that I think is going to be one of the more funs to watch.
I'm with you. Washington football team, wide receiver. Washington has far better receiving depth than a year ago. A lot of the fringe guys this year would have been locks last year. If it keeps 6, the first 5 would be Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries, Dimey Brown, and Cam Sims. That means players such as Antonio Gandy-Golden, Kevin Harmon, DeAndre Carter, rookie Dax Milne, and Steven Sims are fighting for the last spot. Carter could make it as a dual returner. Gandy-Golden has an edge because he was a 4th-round pick last year and has flashed. Harmon and Sims both have had solid moments in camp, and Milne is a guy that they want to develop. More than likely, they'll lose someone that they wish they could have kept, but just didn't have the room. This is a lot like Dallas, Parker. I mean, Washington just has a lot of really good receivers, and they can't keep 9, even though they like all 9. They're going to have to cut somebody that they really like.
Yeah, they will, and it's always a tough decision because the Colts are in a similar boat. They have Hilton, they have Pittman, they have Pascal, they have Paris Campbell. is their top four, and then you have guys behind them that are solid players that they want to keep. They drafted a guy in the 7th round out of Charleston, Michael Straken, so he's a good player as well. So this wide receiving core for Washington's a solid core. Terry McLaurin's a stud. Curtis Samuel's really good. Humphreys, somehow finds a way onto a team every single year, and he, puts up numbers. So those are your top three. But then the last, 5 or 6 are, really interesting. So I think most teams keep 5. If they want to keep 6, it's interesting to see who they have.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We have about 5 minutes here until about 3 o'clock, so we're going to knock out the NFC North really quick, and then we will do a little bit of an extended show today until about 3:15 so we can finish this up. But NFC North, Chicago Bears left tackle. The Bears' original plan was to start rookie 2nd-round pick Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. Jenkins has a back injury and is out, and there's a lot of questions about if he'll be ready for the regular season. Next up was veteran Elijah Wilkinson, who looked pretty good before he went on the COVID-19 list. With Jenkins and Wilkinson both unavailable, the Bears have turned to rookie 5th-round choice Larry Borum to fill in on the left side. Parker, this one's a little unique. It's not like a lot of the other position battles we've talked about. It's not guys playing well and competing. It's just kind of like the last man standing vibe where a lot of guys are out, and it's trying to find a guy that'll be the left tackle for the Bears.
Right. It's certainly interesting. Tevin Jenkins has, the injury. You have, and then Wilkinson has COVID. So that leaves, Larry Borum. So this group is going to be, one of the, more lackluster spots on this Bears offense.
It is. The Green Bay Packers, offensive line. What's more important than keeping Aaron Rodgers up right? Left tackle David Bakhtiari isn't likely to be cleared from his ACL injury in time for the opener, so it looks like Pro Bowl left guard Elgton Jenkins will move out to tackle. There are 3 competing for 2 guard spots, returning starter Lucas Patrick plus second-year pros John Runyon and Ben Braden. Runyon played 160 snaps last season, while Braden only played 4, but it has been a close competition. The most common combination has been Runyon at left guard and Patrick at right guard, but Braden remains in the mix. Throw in a new center, 2nd-round pick Josh Myers to replace the departed Corey Linsley, and it's imperative that the Packers get their top 5 guys right.
Yeah, it is. And this is really, like you said, really important for them. So you have a guy who replaces Lindsey and Josh Myers, and then these, Bakhtiari needs to get back as soon as he can. He won't be ready, I think, for the opener, but this offensive line is honestly in shambles right now at Green Bay.
Asking a 330-pound left tackle to come back from a torn ACL in 8 months is quite a tall order. So I don't think he will be there in week 1. But let's move on to the Lions. Inside linebacker and safety. Fans should track the positional competition between inside linebacker first and then safety. Dan Campbell says these are the most important battles. Campbell said, I'm not just talking about starting. I'm talking about who's the next guy in. We could have 3 starters, if you know what I mean. They're rotating, though. We could have 4. So much is going to play into how special teams goes, too, especially in that position. The Lions finished 2020 with the worst defense in the league. They will need key guys in those roles, such as Will Harris, Dean Marlowe, and Tracy Walker at safety. And inside linebackers, Jamie Collins, Alex Anzalone, Jelani Tavai, and Jalen Reeves-Maben to try to make an impact during camp. This is legit just a free-for-all, Parker. This was a team that just did not have any good linebackers or safeties last year. So they just have 8 or 9 guys, and it's like, look, all of you will probably make the team, but whoever plays the best, you're starting. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's how it's going to work. I think my favorite, for the job is has to be Jamie Collins. He's a solid player, and then Jelani Tavai is a great player as well. And then they bring in Alex Anzalone from the Saints. So you have 3 guys here that are solid, but then you have another 3 or 4 behind them that are really, going to give the other guys tough competition.
I'm with you. Our final team in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings, right guard. Last season, 20 of the 39 sacks Kirk Cousins took came through the interior of the offensive line, which prompted the Vikings to improve their personnel around center Garrett Bradbury. Moving Ezra Cleveland to left guard created a competition at right guard, where Oli Udo and Dakota Dozier spent the first 2 weeks splitting reps with the first-team offensive line. While Udo might have the edge right now, given how well his length fits at the position, don't rule out rookie Wyatt Davis. With a couple of strong performances in preseason games, the third rounder could emerge as a candidate to start at right guard for the Vikings. I like this one a lot. I think Udo has been the best guard so far in camp, but Parker, camp and preseason are two completely different things. And Wyatt Davis, before suffering an injury at Ohio State in his senior year, was projected to be a first-round pick. He was supposed to be the best guard in that draft class. If he's healthy, he's more than capable of being a really dominant guard in the NFL. And if he has a couple really good preseason games, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's the starting guard in week 1 for the Vikings.
I wouldn't either. All these guys have incredible talent. They moved Cleveland to left guard, so Udo's solid, Dozier's solid as well. But then you have Wyatt Davis coming in, from Ohio State, who's a solid player as well. So I think Udo wins this initially, but if Davis or Dozier have solid preseasons, I think either of those guys could win it out.
I agree. We're going to step away for our legal ID really quick. Like I said, we're going to extend the show today till about 3:15 so we can get through the NFC South and the NFC West. Don't go anywhere. We'll finish up the show right after this. All right, final few minutes here of the show on this Thursday afternoon. Appreciate you hanging out with us as we, have a little bit of a what do you call this, Parker? Is this like a bloopers thing, or is this just extended footage, deleted scenes? What do you want to call this?
I think it's, I don't know.
Extended idiocy.
Another 15 minutes of stupid, idiocy regarding sports that no one wants to listen to.
That's a good way of putting it.
It was a very drawn out answer. It's just a very simple question, so I apologize for that. But it's been a good show today, and let's finish strong, Shay.
Absolutely. Let's start with the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons, right tackle. This is easy because it's really been a question in the entire camp. Caleb McGarry is on the physically unable to perform list, but third-round pick Jalen Mayfield looked like he was in a good position to have a shot until Friday when he was moved out of the first 5 for the first time all camp. On Saturday, Willie Beavers replaced him for every first-team snap. After practice, Coach Arthur Smith said Beavers had earned it through his practice play and he wanted to create competition, but if it continues through the week, it'll create a real competition at right tackle for at least a little while.
Yeah, I think Mayfield is the favorite here. But Willie Beavers is a solid player as well. So it's going to go back and forth throughout the preseason. But I think this job has to be Mayfield's.
And no offense to Jalen Mayfield, but I'm going to be pulling for Willie Beavers just because I think that's a great name, and I'd love to see Willie Beavers starting on the Falcons offensive line. So. That's my dog in this fight, but no disrespect to Jalen Mayfield either. Left tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Since Jordan Gross retired in 2013, the Panthers have not found a steady left tackle. Free agent signee Cam Irving is first up, with Greg Little and Trent Scott also taking turns with the first team. Right tackle Taylor Moton has also gotten some reps there, so don't rule him completely out, even though right side is his strength. Preseason games will decide this, but it looks like it is Irving's to lose. But like we said with other quarterbacks such as Kirk Cousins, Pat Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence, keeping Sam Darnold upright is essential to any success the Panthers have this season.
Yeah, and that's imperative. And one thing that I think we've seen with the Panthers is how Sam Darnold will perform. And then another thing is, can they keep Christian McCaffrey healthy? And Matt Rule is, in year number 2 here. They won 5-11 last year. David Tepper bought this team a few years back, and they haven't had a whole lot of success. So, but I think if they fail to miss the playoffs again this season, I think that seat gets a little bit hotter for Matt Rule. So this left tackle position is real important to keeping in the success of this Carolina Panthers team.
I'm with you. Let's talk about one of the bigger ones, Parker, on this list, the Saints quarterback. This one is pretty obvious. The Saints have a job opening for the first time in 16 years after Drew Brees' retirement. So far, it's still too close to call between Winston and Taysom Hill, who both have performed mostly well, taking turns with the first strings. The quarterbacks aren't alone. The Saints also have major voids at cornerback and wide receiver, among other spots, with at least 10 new starters expected in week 1. We both, I think, are on the same page with this. I think Taysom Hill is perfect in the role that he's in. The gadget player that can do a little bit of everything. But I think at the end of the day, I think Jameis Winston's the starting quarterback in New Orleans.
He's got to be. I think experience wins out here. I know we touched on it a little bit at the top of this segment, but this one is got to be Jameis Winston's job to lose. And it's imperative in this preseason. I think to see who comes out and plays well. If Winston struggles, maybe it's Hill, but if he plays well, it's got to be Winston.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver. Yes, you heard me correctly. The group that has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown is the most important position group battle in Bucs camp. Those three and Scotty Miller obviously will make the team, but then behind them is Jaden Mickens, rookie Jalen Darden, Tyler Johnson, Travis Johnson, and Cyril Grayson. Justin Watson is expected to miss another 3 months due to a knee injury. But how many can the Bucs keep on the roster? Mickens has had an exceptional camp. Darden continues to get a ton of reps with the starters. They're excited about Johnson, which might mean that Tyler Johnson is the odd man out, even though he started 3 games last season. Arians already called Johnson out for coming to camp out of shape, so he's having to kind of work his way out of the doghouse as well.
Yeah, that's it's kind of kind of a sucky way to enter camp. It's when your head coach, especially a guy like Bruce Arians, who brings the energy and the passion that he has. He calls you out for being out of shape coming in. So that's a rough start, to say the least. But wide receiver position for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like you said, is surprising for this one, but they have lots of talent here. You have Scotty Miller, you have and then of course the top 3 guys. But where do they cut the ties? Who knows?
Right. Let's get to our final division of the day, and that is the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals inside linebacker. It may not seem like this is the most important position battle because first-round pick Zaven Collins and last year's first-round pick Isaiah Simmons were anointed the starters. But fellow linebacker Jordan Hicks is pushing the two of them every day to prove he's still worthy of a starting job, the starting job that he's had the last 2 years. It might not change the mind of Arizona's decision makers, but Hicks will push the two youngsters as hard as he can for that job.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like it's the old adage of if you have a few guys and if you have 2 guys or 3 guys and they're the same, you go with the younger guy. And Hicks is the the loser in this scenario because he's a solid player, but Simmons and Collins have talent. So I think like you said, both Collins and Simmons are the starters, but I think Hicks is going to fight for all he's got.
I'm with you. LA Rams outside linebacker. The Rams open training camp with most of their starting roles accounted for, but questions remained at outside linebacker opposite Leonard Floyd. Justin Hollins, a 2019 fifth-round pick, whom the Rams claimed off waivers last season, and Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo, a fifth-round pick in 2018, are competing for a job. Hollins appears to be the front runner. However, it seems most likely that they both will contribute in a rotation. Sean McVay said that Justin Hollins is a guy that used all the things that he did really well last year and has really continued to build and grow, and we're excited about him. And Ogbo is a guy that has a lot of ability as well. 16 games last year. Hollins had 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and a pass deflection. Okoronkwo has 2.5 sacks and a pass deflection in 20 games over the past 2 years. I think I tend to agree with what this says. I think Hollins has a little bit more to offer, but I think the most likely outcome is that both of these guys play in kind of a rotation.
Look at you. You pronounce that name like a stud. I would have had to sit there and look at it for a second. But you went right in, and I think you nailed it. But this is an interesting one for the Rams because their defense is already one of the best in football. So they have Leonard Floyd on one side, but you have a pretty solid battle here between Hollins and Okoronkwo.
Look at you got it too. Good job.
So this is one that's interesting for sure. So he was drafted 3 years ago in the 5th round, so he's been around the team. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out for McVay.
How the heck is it that I can't remember a volleyball match as a match, but I can say Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo with no problem whatsoever?
Speaking of volleyball matches, we got one on the schedule, Shay.
Plug, shameless plug. Go get them. Let them know.
We got one on the schedule, August 21st, 3:45 pregame show. No, we don't know who will be on the call yet for
It won't
that.
be
You
me.
know,
I will be working at my other job, so it'll either be Parker Testa and Scotty Kramer, or it will be Parker Testa by himself.
yes.
But
So
either way, I will be tuning in live from my other job. So
yes.
you will have
So
at least one.
it's an exhibition match with Miami of Ohio, but it's kind of like just a basic kind of make sure we have everything in the right, everything in the right headspace, make sure everything's working good. But still, it's a match. We're excited to get back to McLean. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a good opportunity for us to make sure everything's up and running smoothly and not have to worry about testing that for the first match of the regular season. So
Right.
we're excited for that. But let's get to the Niners. Wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne's off to New England. The Niners aren't exactly loaded at receiver behind Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. The contenders for roster spots are Mohamed Sanu, Richie James Jr., and Travis Benjamin, and Jalen Hurd, Juwan Jennings, and Trent Sherfield. Another year removed from ankle surgery, Sanu looks like an early favorite for a spot. By the way, I read an article today that Sanu is freaking tearing up Niners camp. Although the Niners don't use 3 receiver sets often compared to most of the league, it's important to establish an option for the slot and also to define a pecking order of capable options in case of injury to Samuel or Ayuk. Sanu's had a really good camp. I think he makes this team if he stays healthy. And I think another guy that makes this team that I really, really like is Jalen Hurd. Other than that, I couldn't really tell you. But I think the Niners have a lot of inexperience at receiver. But if they go into the year with Samuel, Ayuk, Sanu, and Hurd, I mean, there's a lot of talent there.
There is, and you got to have talent here for Garoppolo or Lance. Who's it going to be? Who knows? So
It's going to
that's
be Garoppolo. If it was going to be Lance, they'd say that's the biggest position battle.
right. So this is interesting. You have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who are both really talented receivers, but like you said, Sanu's tearing up Niners camp. But I think it'll be personally. I think they'll have Benjamin and Hurd as their 4 and 5, but
Okay.
who knows here?
I mean, the Bengals drafted Mohamed Sanu, so I like Mohamed Sanu, but I'm not going to lie to you. I thought the dude was cooked. He did not look very good in New England. So very, very exciting and a headline that I wasn't expecting to hear that Mohamed Sanu is just dominating in Niners camp. 32-year-old Mohamed Sanu, just sunning some of these 21-year-old rookie corners. So good to see that he has a little bit of juice left in the tank because he's a solid slot receiver and a really good route runner. And he's like 8 for 9 in his career throwing the football with like 6 touchdowns. So he's like the most efficient quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Yes, at a wide receiver. How about that?
Yeah. Let's get to our final team of the day, the Seattle Seahawks center. Pete Carroll said over the offseason that Kyle Fuller would get a legitimate shot to win the job, even though, wait a minute, there's a Kyle Fuller that's a center? Would you look at that? No, oh my goodness. They tricked me. Okay. I think they're saying that there's a Kyle Fuller center that plays for the Seahawks, but when I click on the Kyle Fuller that they have attached to this article, it takes me to the Broncos corner, who I was thinking of.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I'm going to assume that it's a center named Kyle Fuller. I'm going to assume.
I would assume the same thing. Maybe ESPN just doesn't have a player profile for him.
I think that ESPN's writers are smart enough that they would have caught that. So, Kyle Fuller, according to Pete Carroll, has a legitimate shot to win the job, even though Seattle re-signed Ethan Pocic, who started there last year. Pocic's experience and his $3 million contract made him the clear favorite, but he missed the first few days with a hamstring injury that he recently aggravated, so the gap between those two doesn't seem as wide as it was a few weeks ago. I think at the end of the day, we've said this a lot today, Parker, I think they go veteran at the end of the day. But it's always good to have depth, and Seattle's offensive line has been garbage for 7-8 years. So if they have multiple good offensive linemen, that is a really good problem for Pete Carroll.
Yeah, it is, and I think they have to go with Pocic here. So
worst case scenario, you just slide the one that doesn't start at center to guard, because Lord knows you could use more good offensive linemen.
Exactly. So that's the biggest question here for John Schneider and Pete Carroll. So this offensive line is in shambles, obviously. And that's why That's why Russell Wilson had beef with the front office in the offseason about getting protection, and he doesn't want to run for his life anymore. So this is big here for the Seahawks. I think they'll go with the veteran as well, but we'll see what happens.
I'm with you. That was a good show today.
It was lots of fun today.
It was. We have a big show lined up for tomorrow though as well. We're going to do Conference USA college football preview. It's our last non-Power 5. Where, for those of you that are wondering and just now joined, SEC Big Ten, that you haven't done those yet. Yeah, we know. We're doing them live in studio next week. So hang tight. And something that I'm really excited about, Parker, we're going to do a best of Horizon League basketball tier list. I'm going to make it while I'm in the office tomorrow because Lord knows nobody on Tier Makers or Horizon League basketball fans. So I'm going to have to do it myself. But we're going to have Loudon Love, Tanner Holden, Drew McDonald, Jalen Tate, Darius Quisenberry, Amari Davis, Antoine Davis. And we're going to put them all on a tier list. It's going to be awesome. It's probably going to be my favorite one of the summer. I'm not going to lie.
I'm with you. It's gonna be really, really. It's gonna be an awesome one. I'm excited for it.
We should get Bob Grant on the show and see if he'll do the tier list with us.
Yeah,
he put every Raider in S tier,
and every non-Raider in in D tier.
Oh, I think BG's got some respect for the conference. He just put every Raider in S tier.
Oh. Yeah, just kidding. But every Raider would be in S tier, and then you trickle the other players in where they see fit.
Well, guys, I think Drew McDonald was this really solid player, but I'm going to put Loudon in S tier, and I'm going to put Drew down here in B tier because he didn't play for Wright State.
Yeah,
I hear you, BG. I hear you.
Yeah, and we would not disagree. No, because BG is smarter than both of us.
But, he is, no doubt about it. BG's got more brain power in his left ear than I have in my whole body.
But really excited for that tier list. It's going to be a really fun one.
It is. I'm very excited for it, no doubt about it. I think that something that needs to happen soon. Bob Grant, our athletic director, really one of the best in the country at his job, just brought chocolate milk to the women's soccer team a couple days ago. I've waited patiently for 3 years, but I think it's time that the WWSU sports broadcast team got some chocolate milk hand delivered by the GOAT.
I'm with you. I'm
not even a huge chocolate milk fan. It's about the pride, man.
Right, and I think our content has reached a level to where we're deserving of a delivery of chocolate milk from Bob Grant.
Right. A couple years ago, the stuff we were putting out, he might have given us like a warm Gatorade, but now I think we've reached chocolate milk tier.
It's possible. I think we have. Let's go. So BG, if you're listening, our door's open.
No warm Gatorade for these guys. Just saying.
BG's going to bring us warm Gatorade just to, rub it in our face.
No, he's going to bring 2 coolers. The first one he gives us is going to have warm Gatorade. And then when we look all sad and defeated, he's going to actually bring chocolate milk.
Yeah. But, BG, if you're listening, our door's open. We're waiting.
Yeah. He's a legend. I'm excited to get back to Raider sports this season. A lot of fun coming up tomorrow, but tier list of the best, and if we forget any Horizon League basketball players, let us know. I mean, I'm probably only going to go back until about 2017 because I need to make sure that we can get through this tier list in an hour, and I can't do every Horizon League basketball player of the last. I can't put Gordon Hayward on this list, okay? So I think we're going to be doing like Drew McDonald, Grant Benzinger on, but it'll be a lot of fun. I'm already struggling thinking who I think is a better player, Tanner Holden or Grant Benzinger. Good Lord. Like, I think Holden's got more skill, but Benzinger won a championship, and I think that counts for something.
Yeah. So
we'll see. I got to sleep on.
Right. It's going to be a fun one. Tomorrow's show, we got Conference USA, and then we got the Horizon League tier list. So we got a really fun show for you tomorrow. And then next week we're back in studio, and
Tuesday through Friday. No show Monday, but Tuesday through Friday we're going to end the summer with a bang.
With Big Ten Conference, with SEC, and I'm sure we'll figure out some other fun stuff for you guys. So
Fantasy
really fun show today.
Draft.
Yes, got that too. So looking forward to it.
No doubt about it. I'm really, really excited for it, and we hope you are as well. So that does it for today's show. Appreciate you hanging out with us until about 3:20 or so. We went a little bit over, but thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you tomorrow. And for Parker Testa back in Noblesville, this is Shea Neal saying so long and keep it real. We'll see you for Friday.